Hey, guys.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Dave.
Good evening.
Jim.
So we know Kasumi's traveling, so he won't be here. Chip told me he's running late in traffic somewhere. Don't see Mickey yet.
Sure, it's raining pretty heavy out there on the 128.
Yeah. Looks like Mickey's almost here, so we'll give it another minute. Get started. Hello, Mickey. Are you with us? You're on mute. Are you on mute, Mickey? There he is. Welcome. All right. All right, everyone ready? We'll get started. Hopefully Chip will be along momentarily. The transcript.
And favor seltzer.
All right. All right, good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order for the Town of Wakefield Board of Appeals for May 24th, 2023. So the roll call of board members: Jim McBain.
Here.
Tom Lucy.
Here.
Joe Pride.
Here.
Greg McIntosh.
Here.
Mickey Feely.
Here.
And Dave Hatfield, your chair, is present. Kasumi Humphreys is traveling and won't be with us this evening. Chip Tarbell is on his way in traffic somewhere. Hopefully he'll be joining shortly, and we will acknowledge that for the record when he does arrive. All right. Legal notice. Joe, if you would, please.
Consistent with the governor's orders extending certain provisions of the open meeting law, every effort will be made to allow the public to view and or listen to this meeting in real time. If you don't have a camera or microphone on your computer, or you may use the following dial-in number: 1-301-715-8592, meeting ID 818-3995. 2281, passcode 389718. Please use only dial in or computer, not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and video recorded. In compliance with the Americans with Disability Act, this location is accessible to people with disabilities. Wakefield provides reasonable accommodations and/or language assistance free of charge upon request. If you are a person with a disability and require information or materials in an alternate format, or if you require any other accommodation, please contact the town's disability coordinator, William Bernal, town engineer, at 781-246-6308 as far in advance of the event as possible. Every effort will be made to grant your request. Advance notification will enable the town to make reasonable arrangements to remove an accessibility barrier for you. 1, continued hearings. 2, 23-83, 23-84, 23-85, and 23-86 Christine Hill. Application for a special permit under Article 4, Section 190-22A1F of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, seeking relief of an accessory apartment in the basement level of their single-family dwelling. Application for a variance under Article 4, Section 190-22A1F5 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw for sides yard setbacks. Application for a variance under Article 4, Section 190-22A1F6 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, seeking relief for the square footage of the accessory apartment. Application for a variance under Article 4, Section 190-22A1F2 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, seeking relief for lot width and frontage. The property is shown on map 11, lot parcel M16 plus of the assessors map, and is located at 9 Elm Crest Road, Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. So we've received requests to continue a couple matters on our agenda, so we'll take those up first, as we always do, in case anyone's here just for those hearings. From Attorney Brian McGrail, dated May 24th, 2023, regarding Camden Block LLC, 369 to 371 Main Street, case numbers 23-14, 15, 16, and 17. Requesting that we continue the matter to June 14th, 2023, still in the process of working on the town easement issue and draft conditions.
I move we continue to June 14th.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right. So regular voting members and Greg. Tom,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that's unanimous. So Kingman Block project will be on our June 14th agenda. Next, from Attorney Brian McGrail, also dated May 24th, 2023, regarding Granite's Family Trust LLC at 314, 330, and 336 Salem Street, Wakefield, case numbers 23-43 through 50. Requesting that we continue the meeting to the June 14th, 2023 hearing until they're still in the process of reviewing drainage with the town engineer.
I move we continue to June 14th.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion on this motion? All right, same voting members. Tom,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that hearing will be on our June 14th agenda as well. All right, as for the regular agenda, we have now 5 continued hearings, 1 new hearing, as you just heard in the legal notice, and 1 other matter. We've received a request, and sometimes we entertain these, especially if we think they're going to be quick, which this one could be, to look at the other matter first and perhaps get that one out of the way. Board members, any questions or concerns with doing that, taking this one out of order? Okay. So the other matter is case 23-22 through 30 at 184 Water Street. One Sylvan LLC was the applicant, requesting minor modifications.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Attorney Brian McGrail, I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Severio of Solanchetti is here. He is the principal of the project, and our architect, Rob Passione, is here also. And I'm going to share my screen, if I may.
Okay.
And Severio, are you here?
I am.
Great. So we've got some changes relating to material requests and also we've got some venting through the mechanical engineering design that we need to talk about that has to go on the building. So Severo, do you kind of want to set the table and then on why you're substituting material, requesting to do so, and the differences between the material, et cetera?
Yeah, for sure. So for the record, my name is Severio Fulciniti on behalf of 184 Water Street. Trying to make a couple of small changes, as Brian alluded to. So number one, the biggest thing is just basically the material on our facade. And number two is just calling out some mechanical louvers. I'm going to let Rob really speak to the specificity of it, but generally speaking, what's happened is we originally came in with materials from a company called Trespa. And unfortunately, going through that process, we've realized that that material is going to take quite a while to get. So Rob has done a great job of finding basically a similar material. As Jim kind of pointed out, it's a slightly different scale that we've come up with because it's a different application. So rather than the panelized system that we had that was getting custom cut, we've got something a little different that Rob will go over. But when you see this first page, you notice that we've got on the left-hand side our approved materials, on the right side what we're basically asking to substitute. And like I said, Rob has found some really complementary substitutes. So we're taking our Italian walnut and turning it into redwood. We're taking our slate ebony and turning it into what's called bark. And then there at the bottom, Brian, do you mind scrolling up just a little bit? We had Siberian larch, and now we're going with a color called spruce, so slightly lighter, slightly different tone. So I'll let Rob dive into the exacts and how he made this all work. But generally speaking, this is, I guess, the vast majority of what we're trying to cover tonight.
And the venting, right?
Yep, and the venting that I mentioned. Yep, exactly. And Rob will point those out when he goes through the elevations. We've created kind of a side by side, so to speak. So,
okay, Rob, where do you want me to go with this? Next page.
Why don't you? No, just stay here for a second. So thanks, Aurelio. So I'll just kind of run through just kind of what these materials are. So the materials on the right are the materials that we're proposing for the substitution. So this is a Nichia vintage wood cement fiber product. And we selected these colors, as you can see, as they're very close to the colors of the materials that were previously approved. So those materials are a high pressure laminate. So, you know, they both have a wood grain to them. The high pressure laminate is basically like a flat panel with a wood grain image on it, whereas the materials we're proposing have much more of a textured finish. And they also have, as you can see, a groove in them. So it basically depicts like a type of residential siding. So those are the major differences between the two, but you know, color wise, they're very similar. Okay, Brian. So if you just want to scroll down to the next sheet. And then just for comparisons, this is the approved material elevation that we had presented. And then if you scroll down one more, Brian.
I'm just gonna let the board digest this for a minute.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So these are the proposed material substitution. So I should point out, as you guys are looking at this, we actually took a major rooftop unit off of the roof, and we're just doing some small heat packs up there, or heat pumps. So we actually reduced the size of the screening up there. So as we scroll through, you'll see that if you notice the roof, that there's a
Brian, do you mind popping back up to the top? Sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just so you can
Yeah,
kind of
that's
see
fine.
the difference.
Yeah,
So I think
so
this is a really good angle for seeing that. You can see kind of above that center section, that much taller roof wall there. Yeah, exactly where Brian's. Yep. So that's gone now. Bring down the height a little bit.
Yeah. So the new screen is in the middle. We did leave a little gap on the bottom just for snow and everything and drainage, but you wouldn't really see from the street anyway. And then just to point out real quick, the in the lower right-hand corner there of the building, there's that new ball louver. So that's to ventilate the garage. So Brian, if you want to just scroll down to the next elevation. So this is the front elevation. This is the already approved elevation. And then if you scroll down to the next, you're ready. This is the proposed materials. So, you know, again, very similar colors. And you can notice the screen is quite a bit different now. And
Did
again,
that
Brian,
Siberian, excuse me, just, did that Siberian definitely have those lines in it before? And this one's more smooth, or is that really a accurate depiction of the before and after there? See how it has those little vertical lines?
yeah, I think those lines are way more accented than it would be in actuality. I think that what we're proposing, it's going to be a little more defined than that would have been. I know this elevation doesn't really show it that great, but those grooves are, they're about a 1/4 inch deep, so they're fairly noticeable.
Okay,
The color looks a lot different though. Looks the proposed looks a lot lighter on the left-hand side. I mean, that looks like gray and black.
Yeah, Brian, can you scroll to the top of the page? So that's the difference between the two, the lower two images. So the material on the left does have a little bit more of a gray color to it, as opposed to the right has a little bit more of a warm kind of brownish color.
No,
Yeah, I was going to say, Rob. Oh, sorry, Joe.
No, go ahead. It just looked like you went from like a gray side of that building, or almost black, well, gray with black lines, to like a pinkish.
Yeah, I would say
like
that
crazy.
the PDF probably doesn't capture it very well. But
Yeah,
we do
Brian,
have,
go down to the.
we've looked at we actually have in hand the material samples. I would call it more of a warm tone, like Rob mentioned. It does look a lot warmer than the cool gray.
is that because you couldn't find a gray in this other manufacturer or something, or this was the closest that you could find?
This was the closest, but to be honest with you, I feel like this warmer material is a little bit more appropriate for being Parkside the way it is. The gray, I think, maybe is a little bit more stark, and maybe Jim has an opinion on that, but I personally prefer the warmer material.
Okay, I'm just curious,
Yeah, no,
because
definitely
the
it's a
other
great
ones
question.
do look closer, and yeah, the materials in the top maybe depict it better than these renderings do, but
Well, that's kind of what I was
difference.
going at. It looks,
Yeah.
I mean, up
Yeah.
top, it looks real similar, and then you go put it on the building, it looks like a huge change.
Yeah.
Well,
It's tough to capture in the PDF.
it's interesting in that what happens is previously the blackish color on the bottom with the grayish color basically playing against one another. And that gray is more of a green gray type of thing. Now with this change, you got the brown tones basically playing with one another, and the black bottom color is not part of the party. It's just a base. So it changes the feeling of it to some degree, but it's, in my opinion, it's fine. I don't have any issue with it.
Okay, Brian, maybe just scroll down to the last set, just to show everyone okay, so this was the approved elevation, and then if you can scroll down to the next one.
And this is on the Melvin Street side, right, Severio?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
so this
Yep,
is as
exactly.
you're pulling into Nassau on the right-hand side.
And I just wanted to point out that there are some additional louvers on this side, as you can see in the elevation, goes down there. Yeah. So those are for the garage and for the retail space. And then, pretty significant reduction in the screen. Yeah.
So back to Dave's comment earlier, the lines obviously are strong in this, and you're saying there are lines in the brown here?
Yeah, they don't translate through, but there's every 5.
There it is.
So you see how there's the lines there. So those are separated 5 and 11/16 of an inch, and
Yeah.
they're about a 1/4 inch deep. So they're, you'll be able to perceive them
So
better than what they're.
and those are going to be laid vertically, not horizontally.
Correct. The spruce color is vertical. The rest are horizontal.
Okay.
And can you go to the next? Yeah, so see that middle section, how it's white?
This
Is
was
that
the
all?
approved plan, Dave.
No, all right. But what's on the right? The right looks gray. I mean, the left.
Yeah,
Siberian larch. And what's that middle one that looks white where the balconies are?
That's, yeah, I don't, which one is that, Rob, on that? Because these are the approved. So what is that?
That's a good question. I think that was actually approved, and I think that was for some reason that didn't print out correctly. That should be the same Siberian large color.
That'd be this.
So yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
'cause
so
they're-
that,
Okay,
yeah, those aren't intended to be different.
okay.
I think Chip has a question. Looks like he's driving and looking at the screen at the same time. Shouldn't be doing that, Chip, but let's hear him out. Let's hear him out anyway.
Oh, well, through me, yes, we can do that. Welcome, Chip. For the record, Chip Tarbell appears to be with us in the car. Chip, would you like to add something?
I would. I want to go back to the reason for this change.
Can't hear him.
Yeah, tough audio, Chip.
Sorry.
You're breaking up. Chip, we're not getting your audio at all.
And just heard, people are probably, all right.
No. Are you okay? That
That's better.
started to get better. Come off mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can. I think you're in a bad spot.
I want to go back to what got glazed over, I think, a little bit as to why we're even here. So all I heard when you guys first made the presentation is that, well, we can't get this stuff. How far out is the material that you originally spec'd?
It's custom cut overseas in Germany, so it's minimum 6 months. So that's predominantly the issue.
Didn't you know this when you originally presented the material?
We didn't. We actually had a far more responsive rep at that time. And since then, he's basically gone MIA, which got us a bit uncomfortable with the material and the vendor.
Okay, so, and
Yeah, this material is all sourced in the US and basically readily available. They can ship in just a couple of weeks.
what's the cost differential?
Cost differential is significant. It's probably like, 3 times less.
Hmm.
So let's really cut to the chase.
Mhm.
You kind of spec'd a material that you weren't sure you could get. Now you can get this material for 3 times less. Wouldn't it be nice if we approved it for you? I just want to be honest and upfront with all this stuff, not just, oh, we got lucky and we got real colors that are real close. Let's really say what it is that we spent months, not months, but we spent a long time discussing materials and everything else that we approved. And now when it really comes down to building it, you find something that's local for 3 times less. That's pretty close. That's a pretty good summary, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly one way to look at it. And of course, value engineering throughout the process, once we get engineers involved and once we start really dialing in design, is absolutely part of the process, right? I mean, we want projects to be viable. We want them to be buildable. So when we get into it, obviously the idea is we have an idea of pricing. We can't really finalize pricing or fine tune it until we've got a final takeoff, right? So as we got into the takeoff, yes, prices went up, but I mean, that's pretty much the nature of the last, 48 months of price instability. We got one price going in, one price going out, and supply chain hasn't improved. I'm being transparent in honestly answering the question that yes, the price of one material is less than the other, but that is not the driving factor of why I prefer one material over the other. I prefer one material over the other because one is high pressure laminate, the other is cement fiber. One material is cut and done overseas, whereas the other one is here and it's US based. And quite frankly, if you see the differences in the materials, I think you'll actually appreciate the fact that one material really does look like a laminate, whereas the other one is textured to look like wood, and we are next to a park. And so, in my opinion, I think this happens to just be a win-win situation. Is it beneficial to us as a development that yes, we can absorb a greater cost and we are going to save some money? Absolutely, 100%. But I think that's part of the process and why we're here. We're not looking to be we're not looking to cloak it. This isn't a Trojan horse. This is just us saying we can't get the material.
But you weren't transparent until I asked the question. So now we know all the facts. which I appreciate.
Well, it's one element of the narrative. It's not the entire narrative, and it's not the
All right,
driving
but it
force
was
of the
ele-
narrative. If I had
was
to
an
pay,
element that
if I
was
had to
left
pay more money for material that isn't as good, isn't as handsome, and isn't as useful, then I would have to do that. But we're here to ask for a concession in doing that.
Okay. But now we, the whole story. That's all. That's all I wanted to get down to the base of it all. So thank you. And I don't really have a problem with the choices. I guess, do we need to see these materials to really understand what they look like and the colors that they look? Because the PDF does or doesn't present well. I mean, I think they're fine. Jim's okay with them.
Well, I think the other thing is, Chip, they're a cement board type of product as well. So.
Which I
those-
love.
Yeah, right, exactly. So,
Yeah, I again, I'm okay with it. I just want to know the whole story. That's all. It got real, in my humble opinion, it got real beginning as to why we were changing, and now I got the full understanding, and I'm fine. And I would probably be in favor of calling this a minor modification because it is close enough and the materials are available and we can stay on the construction timeline and all good things, but let's carry on. I made my point. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Do other board members want to see the materials before voting on this, or because I think we saw the original ones, did we not? Were there samples provided?
Yes.
There were not. We provided samples? I don't recall providing any samples.
Yeah, I don't believe we did, Jim.
No.
Okay. We often do, I just don't remember this one specifically.
Yeah. We have samples in hand if you deem it necessary, of course, or if we want to vote on it subject to, I don't know. I don't know how
Here's
that
an actual
would
sample.
play it. Yeah, there's an actual sample, yeah.
Yeah, so we have them.
Board members, are you comfortable voting just based on this rendering, not so much the elevations being as, a more true representation of the differences? And certainly the materials are what they are, but the colors, or do you want to actually see them before voting? Sounds like Chip is okay to vote as is, but
I think I'm good. I think I'm fine with that.
I'm good too. Yeah, and it looks like these are Nichiha brand. We see that quite a bit, I think, right? Too, on a lot of projects.
Yeah, it's a really popular brand for this particular area.
okay. All right, and on the louvers, same thing, board members, no concerns. I mean, it makes sense, you gotta add them, maybe, I'm surprised we didn't pick up on this, because we do this with the garages all the time. Are we venting?
yeah,
We're doing-
these showed up this whole thing showed up when I reviewed the permit set, basically. So that's why we're here at this point.
No, we usually catch this stuff during the original hearings, like, there's gonna be a garage there, how is it being vented?
We wouldn't have known that until we had the mechanical plans anyways.
Okay. Anything else, board members?
Nope.
Okay, so the request is for a minor modification. So I don't.
Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman, I move that we allow this to be a minor modification based on what was presented to us this evening.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Our regular voting members, and now with Chip.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so that's unanimous. All right. So Brian, let me see, did we get a copy of this?
No, I'll send it to you in the morning and I'll do a letter.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think, okay. So yeah, this material and a letter, please.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right. All right.
Thank you.
Where do we stand with your clients, Brian? All right, thank you.
I
Sorry.
would just go on to,
Thank you.
377 Main Street is fine, Mr. Chair. Just skip
Okay.
over him for now. He's not here yet.
He's not here yet, okay. All right, so continue hearing we will take next is 23-51 Dana Rodriguez at 377 Main Street.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Brian McGrail here on behalf of Dana Rodriguez, who is with us here tonight. And I think is Roger here too? Yeah, Roger Krupa is here also on behalf of the applicant. This application is for a sign at 377 Main Street. This has gone before the Design Review Board on an earlier occasion and also came before this board. And Roger, this is the building that is on Main Street at the corner of Albion Street. So it has frontage on both Main and Albion. And it's the building that Dana has invested a significant amount of money recently in redoing the entire facade of the building. It's come out beautiful, and he wants to upgrade the signage. He runs his own financial firm in that building, which provides financial services from accounting, investing, CPA services, mortgage services, quite an array of products that he provides to his clientele, which includes Wakefield people and Wakefield citizens. And now he kind of wants to put the frosting on the cake with an additional sign on Albion Street. As I've mentioned, this was before design review and your board. I'm going to refresh your memory on that if I could, to let you know what was initially requested. Okay. So this is not what's being proposed now, but it's what was requested originally. So this is the building, to just kind of orient you. It's next to the cultural center. And this is the Main Street side. You can see all the facade work that's been done on the building. When this came before you earlier, Dana wants to create a presence on Albion Street. And this was the sign that was originally proposed to the Design Review Board and rejected by the sign review board. Is not appropriate because it does need a special permit. This is in the sign overlay district. And it came before your board after that, and your board summarily rejected it also and said, go back to the drawing board. So our team did go back to the drawing board. We've worked hard and we've come up with a new design, which I'm going to show you, that we were at the design review board yesterday on, which I think is appropriate for the building. And happy to say the design review board unanimously voted to support this sign, as Mr. McBain will convey to you, and to issue the special permit with relief to allow it. And this is what's now being proposed. It was way up before. It's now been brought down. It's been sized to fit in. It identifies the building. This building, again, is occupied by all of Dana's entities. So that's why, it's not a different storefront. So it's important to identify this building for the purpose, because that's how we can direct his clientele to find him. And what we're proposing is a 2-foot high sign, 35 feet long, the 20-inch letters. It's got raised letters that will be gold in a blue background. And the material, we believe, will be wood with laminate or something similar. Once we get the final material specifications, we'll run it by Jim McBain to make sure that we're meeting the spirit of what's being presented. And if not, we would come back to just present it to you, but we feel confident that we can do that. So that is what's being proposed. And again, the design review board unanimously voted to support it. And Jim prepared a memo in that regard. And I will bring that up because I'm sure Mr. McBain is going to want to provide some comment to the board. So this is the memo from the design review board. If I may, Mr. Chair, request Mr. McBain's comments on behalf of the design review board.
Sure. Just a point of clarification, nothing on Main Street is being proposed, just Albion?
No, he has a sign on Main Street now, which is allowed and grandfathered. So he just desired, his original application continues to be just to deal with this side of the facade at this point.
Okay, just to clarify. All right, thank you. Jim?
So in our meeting, basically, there are 3 items basically that they don't meet and need basically approval by this board. And one is basically a sign. It wants to be 70 square feet as proposed here. And of course, 15 square foot is the standard. And anybody that wants larger have to come before the board, basically. So this is one point. The other one is the lettering is 20 inches when only 14 inches are allowed. And then the final point basically is the location. No sign can be above, all signs want to be in a sign band if they exist, which this does have one. But the other point is it can't be above the second floor line. So they need basically a special permit basically for all three of those items. And we've decided basically, given the length and the height of this, that the board's perfectly happy with what's proposed. And it's for one tenant who occupies the whole of that first floor. So it makes sense from the board's point of view, given what's proposed.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Other board members, comments or questions?
Yeah, Jim, I have a question. Was there any thought given to, it seems like Albion Street, we're trying to go towards sort of a hanging bracket sign, I think diagonally across the street at the card store, basically every other sign we've done on that street. The Albion Cultural Exchange, the card store, Kid Casso has two of them. Across the street, I forget the name of it, the yoga place. And now we're getting away from that to a giant sign. Quite frankly, I'm not a design creative person. I don't really like the sign. It's just generic in my mind. Was there any thought, why are we moving away from that here?
Well, it's up to the applicant to request a bracket sign to start with. And there are more and more bracket signs absolutely showing up on Albion Street because it's a one-way and because it's narrow, and getting to see the whole sign is rather difficult in some cases. Albion Street, the cultural center, they were doing that because they didn't have a good architectural location for a sign. And it made more sense to have a bracket sign and a larger bracket sign. We're dealing with one right now that's 8 Albion Street, which has this roof hanging out. It was a jeweler store. And we're requesting in that. And this person came to us and said, what can I do here? And we suggested a bracket sign to that location because it just made sense for them. But in this case, this client basically has not asked for a bracket sign. As you've seen, basically they wanted a bigger sign, higher, and they want a sort of a thread sign in this thing. So I'm fine with it. The board's fine with it, the way it's proposed. It sort of fits the character of the building. And it's at the beginning of the street, so it's not like further down where there's issues here.
Okay, anyone else?
How far does that roof jut out? I mean, if you're underneath it, you won't be able to see it.
I'm not sure. Maybe Dana can tell us.
It's just on half of it. That's a 2-foot overhang. I think it's like 22 inches.
And there's nothing on the windows? Is there the same financial center on any of the door or the doors?
No.
Okay.
So we're going.
Inside, going up to the 3rd floor, there's a sign.
Can we go
Actually, no,
back
that's not-
here, what this sign is made out of?
Yeah, let me go back. Let me go back to the better picture now that, hang on a second, Chip. There you go.
My concern is kind of similar to Greg's, I think. This sign looks very, I'll call it pedestrian. There's nothing to it as far as I'm concerned. We're doing a blue background and raised letters. How thick raised letters? 2 inch, 1 inch? just applied background?
It's probably 1 inch. I think it's 1.5 inches.
So I mean, this, to me, it just looks very, I'll call it pedestrian, very common, not real exciting. You know, if it was a carved sign, if it was, you know, we have no lighting. It's better than what was originally proposed, but it doesn't jump out and say wow to me by any means.
But I don't think, I don't think the picture really does it justice because it's really, as you know, it's just it's like a Photoshop print of it.
So 15 feet is allowed and this is 70 feet. Is that what I read?
15 feet,
Square feet.
15 square feet basically is what the standard is, but that doesn't take into account the actual size of a display area, basically in the form of the business section of the building. A while back, we did Ace Hardware, and we basically gave them a much more space. So the normal storefront in Wakefield is somewhere around 21 feet. So 15 square feet sort of fits that proportion. But if you put a 15 square foot sign on this thing, just imagine how small that would be and how little it would stand out for a business that takes over the whole first floor. It's proportionally inappropriate. And it's unfortunately that the code has been written in such a way that everybody that wants a bigger sign than 15 square feet has to come here. And that's unfortunate. That's the way they wrote it. In a future version that I've been involved in, there's actually a chart that is based on the actual exposure of the business on the street. So party wall to party wall, that length basically, and then a calculation comes up with what you're allowed.
And what are the businesses again? I'm sorry, can you run that by me?
What's
Well,
that?
Right now, Jim, just to clarify, my businesses that I own take up 2/3 of the building. Eventually, that will be the whole building would be businesses that I have. That is all part of financial services.
But they have, I mean, we're basically putting a thing on there that tags us as the financial center of Wakefield, where we don't know any of the actual businesses, but it's the financial center. That has nothing to do with the business itself.
What do
We're
you
just
mean?
tagging this building as financial
Well,
center.
I don't think we're saying it's the financial center of Wakefield. I think that's what the owner has deemed the property to be, is the
But-
financial center.
Is
Yeah,
this
I mean,
the-
it could have been the fleet center. I mean, it's just, it makes no sense to me. I mean, it should be Al's CPA office or, Smith and Smith attorneys. What is this?
It's an identifying marker for the building, for the types of businesses that are in there. That what happens is, I mean, if people are coming to downtown Wakefield looking for people in this building or the entity that's operating under this guise, they're not going to find it. They're going to be driving up and down the street. And
This is next to the cultural center. I mean, it just seems like there's been such a great job lately making this street what it's part of a cultural street, part of a cultural alley for Wakefield, and then to have this just takes the whole thing back. That's my opinion.
Well, if you don't mind, what do you mean? What takes it back? If you don't mind me asking.
I find the sign visually arresting and
So
nonsense.
you want a fancier sign? Because
No.
I'm thinking. No.
I just don't understand why this building is so special that you can't have a nice hanging sign like everybody else on the street. But that's my
well,
opinion.
a hanging sign on this building, with all due respect, I don't think it's going to make a lot of sense, because what the people that are coming to this building from Linfield are going to see the sign on the front of the building. The people coming from Main Street aren't going to see it that well on that angle. So what they're going to do is they're going to see it at the corner of Albion Street as they're driving towards the Common. It's going to hit them right in the face. Because this is right on the corner of Main Street, if they're driving that way, by the time they take the turn, they're not even really going to appreciate a sign that projects out from the building. Plus, this building's too big for that. You know, where you're going to put it, you can't center it on the building. Proportionately, it's probably the biggest building on Albion Street, and a big portion of it's on Main Street. So to put a projecting sign on this, it would have to be huge. To me, it just wouldn't make sense, but it's, you know, again, it's a choice of the owner of the property.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only following right across from that, from my building here. You have the Rockland Trust and you have Albion Dental. Rockland Trust is pretty new. They just changed that sign recently. It's basically a lettered sign, the same thing up against the building. You know, I think between the two of those signs on that one building, which is a smaller building, well, probably put close to the same size. Those two signs are a lot bigger than the sign that I'm proposing here.
I just thought we were moving in a better direction with signs, and I don't like
So-
that you can see this from Main Street personally.
So my problem is not so much the size of the sign, but again, you know, every other sign has the business name, right? This is not a business name. And it's non-descriptive to me. I know it says financial center, and I think back to what Mickey said, you know, it's not Bob's CPA firm, or, you know, because you have a number of businesses, but normally when we talk about signs, and just even the ones you just represented, they're signs with business names. This is not a business name. I guess that's what I'm struggling with.
So I have 5 different businesses. You want me to, I have to have 5 signs, you're saying, with each individual business name on each
you know,
section of where the building is?
This is not argumentative, and you're coming
I'm
back.
asking, I'm trying to understand.
I'm trying to tell you what I'm thinking, and I originally said this is really pedestrian, which means it's not fancy, it's not elegant, it's not creative, which is what we have really tried to do with all the signs. It's not a business sign. I don't know what it is I'm confused by what the words financial center means to somebody turning down Albion Street.
I
Go ahead,
I
Frank.
just want to add to that, Chip. I mean, you know, and you know, I don't know if it's really, with all due respect, within the jurisdiction of the board on what someone puts on their sign for a letter, for a name. I mean, you know, it really becomes a freedom of speech issue under the First Amendment, that people can label their building whatever they want. I don't think anyone can mandate that you have. There's nothing in our bylaw that says you have to have a business name on your sign.
No, but there is something in the bylaw that says you have to ask for a special permit.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're denying it because of what it says on it, which you basically.
No, I'm just confused. I'm trying to figure, and I'm trying to place where I'm coming from. The sign doesn't do anything for me. It's 35 feet long by 2 feet high with block letters. There's nothing creative about this sign at all. And you guys are asking for permission to do it. So I'm just, right now, I'm confused. What is this sign trying to say? It's trying to say there are 5 different businesses in here. I get that, but
so there's 5. What it's trying to say is this all the businesses that are in there are financial services oriented or related.
Okay, but it doesn't say
it's a marker that if I'm a CPA, I'm saying to my clients, or if I'm a financial consultant, I'm saying to my clients, I'm at 377 Main Street. You're coming to meet me today. My office is in the financial center. That's where I am. So, and it makes sense because all of those businesses are financial services related. So
Where-
it becomes a marker for the building because of the types of entities that are operating in there.
Are those entities identified anywhere, Brian or Dana? Are they identified anywhere in the building, inside, inner doors, anywhere? If somebody
Yeah,
were to be
so-
looking?
So I'll have signs on the wall, there's a couple of signs inside the left side there when you're looking at that. So, and I'm still, I've been doing a lot of work inside that building. So, I'll probably be putting, some pictures or whatever with signs on there.
On the
But
inside of the building?
Other than that, there's not really any signs on, but just a couple of placards, just to show people where we are. I kind of took them down on the front here. The entranceway in the center, there used to be signs to get up to the third floor for the businesses that I had up on the third floor. And then just recently, the last year and a half or so, we've moved down to the first floor also.
But
So
you're talking about signs on the inside of that door? Not on the
there
outside?
were, but then I redid everything over in brick, so I took all those signs down. They were on the side as you walk in. They were on the right side and then on the left side.
Right in
Oh,
this area, Dana?
Yeah, well, yeah, right in that doorway there.
Yeah.
Right there, that doorway on each side, there's that sets in, and on each
Yep.
side of the walls, there was signs for the businesses.
And what is going to be there? And
Are
what
you
is
planning
going to-
on disseminating like which, that's the CPA and that's the investment firm, or is there more signage that we're not seeing? Or is it just come on in and read the board on the side?
No, so people come in on right there on that left side, and then once they come in, they'll see who they're looking for. Most of them are going to be looking for me because I do most of the business there. I'm not, other than doing most of the tax work. I have some other people that do the tax work, but all the financial service stuff are the businesses that I run, that I take care of, that I do, I do the selling for. So when they're coming in, they're usually coming in to see me.
But they won't see a sign on those windows is what we're saying. There won't be,
No,
so there'll be,
So Mr. Chairman, I just want to circle back. And I guess I took it down the wrong road as well. I think we asked the design review board to review signs. They have a critical eye. If they 100% approve this sign, doesn't mean we have to approve it, but we're asking them to do the task. It'd be like if the TAC came back and said the roundabout's what we want and this is fine. So I'd go back to the chair of that committee, which is Jim again, and say, Jim, do you think this sign is in keeping, as Mickey said, with the direction that we've been going downtown, and that this will continue to enhance the signage that we're doing downtown?
So let me step in here for a minute after listening to all this. First off, it's their decision what they have on their sign. Second off, if that sign doesn't describe what you think it ought to, that's their marketing decision. We don't have anything to say about that. Basically, if you don't think that's going to draw people in, basically because of the way it's worded, that's their problem. They want that information. All right. If this goes belly up, basically, because they don't get as much traffic or whatever, it's not unlike Greenwood Plaza. We want Greenwood Plaza on the freestanding sign, but we don't want all those signs. We'd rather have maybe something like this that announces the center, but not tell you everybody that's inside. But that's their marketing decision. As to the aesthetics of the sign itself, there's certainly a number of different fonts or some other characters that could be added to the ends instead of those dots, to a little flourish to it, or for that matter, even little carving around the edges with some gold trim or something like that to make it better. I agree that could happen basically, or should happen maybe in this particular case, particularly listening to everybody's comments here as to the aesthetics of it. But when it comes to what the sign says, I think you're going outside the box, basically. And I think if that's what they want, that's their marketing decision, basically. And in some ways, you know, sort of, you might say it is like the Wakefield building, you know, this is going to be the financial center building type of thing. But they use,
Fine. I don't care about the words.
you
It
know,
can say Joe's Hot Dogs for all I care. What I'm really concerned about is that I'm going to use the word again, the pedestrian, you know, like you said, right now, having heard people, that there's no character to this sign. There's no aesthetical value. So I'm going to ask my question again, and I want you to answer it this time. Is this sign the aesthetics that you have been trying to create downtown with your committee? Does this meet those aesthetical values?
the answer would be no.
Okay, so given that, I'm okay with the size and everything else. How do we then get it to give us more of a wow? I don't even care if it's a little bit bigger, but something needs to be created, you know, whether it's carved out of press board. I don't know, but there just needs to be better. And it needs to be more aesthetically pleasing and in tune to what's happening on the rest of town. We're trying to get better, not go backwards. And to me, this is just putting letters on a blank plate. So I'm okay with the size. I'm okay with the size of the letters, whether the font needs to be different, whether there needs to be some character added to it, whether there needs to be some gold leaf on the edges. I don't know, but it needs to be something other than this, in my opinion.
I would even, I guess, take a little bit more critical view than Chip. I don't agree with the size and stuff, with everything that is the direction this area is going. I still don't understand. I understand what Brian said, you know, sort of using it as a wayfinder sign, but it's not like this is, I take a different view. This is a big building. We know where, I forget what you say the address was, Brian, 377 Main, you know,
Yeah.
we're not in the middle of nowhere. You're going to be able to find it. You know, no one's going to say, you know, GPS is what everyone uses to get around nowadays. You know, you're in the area, you park, walk up, yep, there it is. A hanging bracket sign over the doorway would be fine, in my opinion. This giant sign is just completely contrary to everything that's been approved on this recently. I know Mr. Rodriguez said something about the Rockland Trust sign. Maybe I missed it, but I've been on the board for I think 5, maybe 6 years now. I don't remember that sign being approved, and I know Albion Dental was definitely well before my time. So it's not like those are brand new signs and now we're treating something different.
I mean, I have no problem with, you know, I've spent a lot of money to have the building look the way it does. The brick, the signs that we were just talking about, they're inside. I have no intentions of putting anything back. I spent plenty of money on the stonework and the first floor. To me, the sign is, you know, I think is very conducive for the building and the size. As far as dressing up the sign, I have no problem with that. I mean, I can go back and look at that. I'm not, my heart isn't set on the sign. I just need, before I can design something, I'd like to know, okay, this is acceptable. We're going to go with the shape, with the size of the letters. And then I can come back and say, okay, based on everything else being good, here's some different fonts. For example, the other sign I have that's on the front, that's gold leaf lettering. That's carved in. I think it's a better looking sign than this. I didn't think that was something you guys were going to want. So we went to something that was just more of a, you know, plain simple look, thinking that that's what you guys were looking for. I would rather have something a lot nicer, and I've spent plenty of money on the building to get it to the way it is. And I certainly would do the same thing for the sign if I know that, hey, this is going to be an acceptable sign. And this is where we're gonna put it and so forth and so on. So,
Okay, so let me try to bring it. Let's bring it in here. So I think most of the points have been raised. In my mind, I don't have a problem with the size, the lettering, the size of the sign, and its location. Per the design review board, I agree with their assessment that this works. I was trying to understand, me personally, financial center, was that the name of a business or an entity or a generic statement? Brian, I don't think we've done one of these, if I can recall. So it's unique in that sense,
Yeah.
right? We always have identified businesses, individual entities, and not a generic center. So I was trying to wrap my head around that too, through some of this discussion. I would be in favor of agreeing with the design review board to approve what has been presented in terms of the relief needed to get this sign where it needs to be. I too would like to see something better. So if Dana, you're willing to come back and present maybe a couple other alternatives, maybe something that's consistent with what's on Main or something of that like. I think you're hearing from the board that, generally you're in the right direction here. Let's just maybe get it, maybe a little nicer, a little better.
sure.
And then we go from there and we continue this for as long as you think you need, 2 more weeks, and we maybe close it on that point. I don't think we need to belabor it a whole lot more, personally.
Okay.
Anything else, board members?
No, I would just point out that I think you heard a lot about, again, whatever you put on there is your choice, but financial center seems to be in your own, negative to your own business. It seems like it is creating more confusion. I went to your website and it says affiliated financial group everywhere. That would seem to make more sense. Up to you, but seemingly it's causing a lot more confusion saying financial center than affiliated financial group.
Most of my businesses are done from previous clients and just word of mouth that I've been doing. I've been here for 20 years. When I bought the building, it was Board and Building was the name of the sign on the front. So that's probably just why I got I've had affiliated mortgage. I have affiliated real estate. I have affiliated financial services. I have affiliated financial group and affiliated property management. So all that stuff, actually, that's part of the real estate office now too. So, I mean, that stuff that I've had there, I previously had on the sign affiliated mortgage services, which is the sign that's on Main Street. To me, this was just a better way to capture all of it, where it's just, everything's being done here in the financial center. That's all. I only work out of here. I don't work out of any of the other offices I have. So it's just a way for people to know where I am. And I'm usually here 5 to 7 days a week, all day. So the sign, I have no problem dressing up the sign. I'm not married to that sign for sure. As far as, the looks of it, I'd like to dress it up a lot better, just like I did the rest of the building. But I would like to keep the sign, the size of it there, just so that it's noticeable when people come in. And I'm not looking to have all my businesses, over on the edge of the left side, and then another one on the above the windows over, what they call the sign band, and then another 2 more signs in front. Just want to have the one here and then the one in front. I see what goes on in town. I don't really think that I'm bringing down the neighborhood by putting up signs, even if it's this one, as generic as it may be. I still think we're adding value to the area. That's my opinion.
I think Dana, the chair summed it up well where we are.
Okay.
And I think, what we're hearing is that that the sign is, maybe some don't like it, but as far as the board as a whole, it's acceptable the way it's placed and the size, but we've got a little bit of work to do with the design, which we didn't spend a lot of time on it because Dana wanted to make sure that this was going to fit. So they meet again, the board meets again, actually, Mr. Chair, I think it's in 3 weeks because of the way the month hits. It's June 14th.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have a few weeks, Dana, to go to a sign company and get some different.
Yeah, I mean,
designs to
it
make
would, it
better.
would help me if I could see something that you guys like, right? And then, you know, I'll design something like that. I mean, I'm not looking to, you know, certainly buck any trend that you want to do in town. I mean, I've been there for over 20 years now. So, you know, I just, if I can get some guidance as far as what you guys, I'm sure I'll like something too, you know, very, close to what you guys are looking at, if not the same thing. If you said, hey, we like this type of font, or if you like the like I said, the other sign I had was gold leaf lettering. I'm out looking for guys that could do gold leaf lettering. The company I got my last sign from, they don't have a guy in there to do that anymore. So I'm back, I'm back looking for somebody to maybe do gold leaf lettering instead of these raised letters. So and then I'd come back and say, hey, how does this look? So I'm very receptive about making the sign look better. And if you could even just, give me pictures of another sign that I could kind of see what what you guys would like. I'm happy to design something like that.
Dana, I've
Hey,
got,
Jim, you got a couple dozen examples you could maybe send them from?
yeah, that's what I was
You
gonna
know,
say.
just-
I
yeah.
do have photographs from many different places, basically, and I can sort through them and
Okay.
send you an image that don't quite match anything like this necessarily, but they have character to them, basically, and how they handle it. And they might be square, they might be stretched, basically, but you'll get the sense of the character of those, basically, that you can possibly use that as a concept to build on.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Mr. Chair, this is a public hearing, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I didn't know if it was other matters or not.
No, this is a continued, we've continued it for a
Okay,
while, but we did open it as Brian alluded to up front. So it's just been continued. And I don't think anyone has a problem with the work that's done on the building. It looks fantastic, right? We're just talking
Thank
about
you.
the sign and appreciate all the work you put into the building itself.
Thank you.
So, okay. And,
Yes, we'll get the sign taken care of.
okay. So, all right, thank you. I just want to move things along here. So if there's a member of the public who wishes to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting at this time. Seeing no hands, we'll close it to public testimony for the evening.
I move that we continue this to June 14th, and I move that I move inside.
Seconded.
All right, we'll just take the first part of that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All right, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Joe, thank you,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, well, thanks for the updates tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
Okay, thank you.
All right, have a good night. And Brian, if you can just send us this information, so it's for the file. We didn't have a copy of what was presented tonight.
Yep.
Electronically, and Jim, if you can forward the letter as well. It's in the file, but like to keep electronic copies of the stuff as we go along. as you know.
I'll send both. I think Jim dropped off the original of his letter today, right?
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
but there's also one in the email stream, I believe, as well.
okay. All right, thank you. Brian, where do we stand with,
They should be on shortly, but I think you can at least take.
Go to the next one?
So, yeah,
Okay.
we're moving.
all right, so we'll go to the next one listed in the agenda, case 23-66, 67, and 68. Mira LLC and Sky Group Investments LLC at 1 Audubon Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Brian McGrail from Mirror LLC and Sky Group Investments LLC. With me tonight is Anthony Goya from Mirror LLC, also referred to as iFly, as you're familiar. So we've moved this along and we're before the Conservation Commission. John Ogren is also here with us tonight. He might not have too much of an active role, but just in case some questions come up for him. John has started with conservation, and we're proceeding with them. I think the initial feedback has been somewhat positive. Is that fair to say, John, with conservation?
That's correct.
Yeah, so we're going to proceed with them. That's an ongoing process. I think last time we went over the parking, which the board did not have any issues with as we had presented it. And we went over also, we've shown numerous renderings of the building. And we talked about the signage, and the signage that has been presented that will face 128 and also face the parking lot of the hotel. And what we really wanted to cover tonight is the board asked for a couple of renderings for the night view of the signs, because I think what the board is trying to determine is the appropriateness of the size of the signage for the building. And to refresh the board's memory, you had said, geez, we kind of want to just see a rendering of what it's going to look like at night in proper scale to see what we would think of that. So we just had this done. We just got them in today, so we'd like to present them to you. They're pretty straightforward presentation, just kind of a couple. And one is from the highway. It's actually from two different angles on the highway. The one on the left is if you're in the northbound lane heading towards Gloucester, and the one on the right is if you're kind of like on the highway on-off ramp of the hotel.
And to just add a little to what Brian was saying or speaking towards, there was also the discussion last time about limiting the amount of time after hours the signage would stay on. And we were totally okay. We would not intend to keep our signage on, all night. It wouldn't be efficient for electrical use, and it wouldn't be useful from an advertising and, connecting with the target customer or anything like that. So, we're happy to work with y'all on limiting the number of hours that any of the signage would be fully illuminated. But this is essentially what the current scale and how the signage would feel off the highway at nighttime.
Yeah, and currently this is not in the overlay district. So currently the bylaw says not lit from 11 to 7 a.m. unless the business is open during those hours. But your board could certainly restrict that further if you wanted to. But that's what the bylaw says.
It also says that the signs can't be greater than 50 square feet, nor higher than 36.
Mm-hmm. Jim, do you want your memo up?
Not necessarily. I mean, those
Okay.
are the two pertinent points. Basically, you already made the time frame piece, which we would have discussed anyway. But with this, basically, we've got the smaller signs are 91 square feet. The big one we're looking at here is 219 square feet. So it's quite a lift from the 50 square feet of the 36-inch height.
Correct. So I guess at this point, we would be completely open and to work however y'all would prefer or would want to discuss as far as either the viability of a waiver to a certain extent. Obviously, if you would like us to bring the signage total square footage down, this is I want this to be a dialogue as much as possible to make sure we're, coherent with the feeling, but, we'd still like to achieve the exposure and the splash to an extent. So however that progresses with y'all, and, we're willing to work accordingly.
Anthony, since we're asking for a variance and the board's in total control, that was an absolutely great presentation. I really think it just deals with what the board thinks is appropriate for the, for the context of the building in relation to the highway, et cetera. So.
Is this sign representation consistent with your other buildings and locations?
Yes. So this is pretty much the standard style signage wherever there hasn't been a mandatory reduction, sizing, scale, everything with the scope of the building. We have recently brought the total signage square footage down in another project, about 100 square feet. But this is in our New Jersey Edison project, which is the same style building. This will be the signage package is currently approved for that one. But we understand we're not married to the total exposure, the total size by any means. We're happy to kind of set this as like, this is our high water mark, and we will work with you to come down however it feels appropriate.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? So on that left picture, so there's the big sign, then on the left, there's the high iFly sign. And then lower, is that a sign too, or is that just like showing inside lights or?
There is a little marquee sign above the glass
Okay.
on the doorway, and that's more for the customer walk-up experience.
Okay.
But again,
And
we're not married to any of this, so if there's a different, if y'all want to, however your comments and concerns, they're all totally in our consideration. So.
And there is, and I don't want you to miss it. There is a sign on the backside, kind of pointing up to Market Street too. You see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the same on both sides, in the back side of that building.
Correct. That
One
one's
either side. And is there iFly only facing the highway, or is there one on the back other side of that building?
No, there's not one on the other tower. So there's just this large sign is our largest impact sign, and there's not one mirroring it. No.
Okay.
Yeah. And, one of the things that, Anthony and I talked about and is, and I'm sure the board's cognizant of it, you don't want to have any impact on neighborhoods, right? And so this really doesn't face, this on-ramp faces more the industrial buildings, kind of on the back of Salem Street. And is, where maybe one of the new apartment buildings will be built, but it's not like you're across from Garden Lane or, so that would be like flashing into a residential district. But you might want to take a look at that yourselves. That's up to you.
For what it's worth, it's not like a plea or anything. It's just just a consideration of why we choose this signage strategy, and it's because we do not spend money on flashy advertisements. We don't put billboards up anywhere else. We don't do any radio advertisement. It's usually word of mouth, and then our building is our prime form of connection with our local market. So this is our vector. So we try to maximize its efficacy, but again, always in consideration with the the local vernacular and motif of the neighborhoods and stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. It seems big to me, but
Let me add something to this, which I didn't put in my notes basically, but there's a section that basically is prohibited devices. It's 190-78, item D, no red or green lights or any light affecting utilizing such colors shall be used on any sign if, in the opinion of the police chief, such a light or lighting would create a hazard of operating motor vehicles. And this exists in even the current code basically, but in this area, that's the same sort of thing. So we have to be careful about using a red light, because if someone gets confused and all of a sudden they see a red light, that are they going to think they have to stop and cause an accident? So having something too big could be, cause that problem. So I think, Brian, you might want to have a little talk with the chief.
Yeah, if the board wants us to do that, we're happy to run it by the chief.
Problem.
I would favor Jim's recommendation. Just, again, I don't know that I would see this sign and say, hey, I got to stop, other than, hey, this is really cool, I want to stop at this business. But
It might slow down, which seems safe, right?
but I think let's do our due diligence. Let's just check with the chief and see if he has any concerns with this.
I think if someone that's inebriated basically all of a sudden wakes up on the steering wheel basically and looks at the red and all of a sudden thinks he's got to hit the brake.
Well, if it wakes him up, it might be a benefit.
Yeah. Let's check with the chief.
Yeah, glad to.
But other board members, I don't know, 200 feet, it's a big sign.
I would like to see if they have reduced it elsewhere, and he is correct. The signage drawing basically that was submitted to us is in fact an older set of drawings, so it's been used multiple places, obviously. But I'd like to see the sign that where they did a reduction and see what that looks like.
Yeah, we're happy to present that. I'll make that a point for kind of the next meeting's homework as we work through the signage process. Again, if y'all have any, we'll bring the reduced signage approach and see if it feels more, copacetic with the feeling of the space. And if you have any more feedback or recommendations for how, you've seen people with similar signage strategies work with the constraints, we're happy to take all the suggestions.
I guess the other question is the ones on the side, particularly this one on the right of this one, what's it doing for you? It looks like the trees and other stuff might even be in the way, so it doesn't do anything.
The sign on the back, it actually is a minimal amount of exposure. So that it's at this point, it's kind of just an artifact from our design, from our basis design. And it kind of overall, like I said, this is kind of us presenting our higher watermark for all the total signage we would ever request. And we're happy to reduce down and remove. So I agree, there's probably some redundancy and even a lack of efficacy to that back sign that we're happy to work through on our side and remove.
The sign on the other side towards the hotel looks like it might be more in scale with the building and is not as obtrusive as the one on the end towards the highway.
Well, for me, it's so close to the highway that the sign is big, but I don't know, I feel like because it's so close to the highway, you kind of get away with having a big sign like that. But instead of that, like to Jim's point with that sign on the back next to the trees, I almost feel like you just get rid of that huge high fly sign and almost just replace it with that other one. I know you're going to lose a big piece of a sign, but I don't know if you need that big highway sign like that. If you just do the one on the front, above the front door, and then just double that on the side and then get rid of the third one. But that's just my opinion.
Well,
yeah, happy to look at that. I know that there's a bit of aesthetic diversity that comes with our square logo style. So I think maybe it's worth presenting a reduced size version of that.
Yeah.
I feel like if we have the horizontal logo in too many places, that might end up feeling redundant. But again, we're willing to explore that.
And to put those two thoughts together a little bit, for the sign on the side of the building, I guess facing the trees, there's a billboard right there, I believe, too. So one, you probably won't be able to see it. But I think that also lends you to having the bigger sign on the highway side to me. It's still going to be smaller than the billboard. That juts out right there too. So just something to keep in mind.
well, the other solution would be you don't have the sign on the front, but the two side ones come forward on those sidewalls. So whether you're coming one way on the highway or the other highway, basically you see the 90-foot sign on the side of the building, which juts out towards the highway. I think let them basically try different options so we can see and basically come back with, different ideas.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Yep.
I like the red. You should try the Wakefield red though.
We have, unfortunately, years ago, there was a lot of money spent on proprietary reds and blues in our signage. So I have very little bandwidth to make colors.
No,
I get my wrist slapped quite often.
Right. Any other updates, Brian?
No,
Okay. Just checking my notes here. So what did I have in my note? Landscaping. Did we cover that before? Or is that on the to-do list? We
we're
covered that
looking,
before.
we were dealing with conservation really on that because it's more of their jurisdiction because we're in the wetlands. John, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, we had a discussion with the Conservation Commission about plantings obviously specifically in the area behind the building, where we're removing the pavement. They wanted us to add basically a couple layers, bushes and trees in that back area. And we've come up with a planting plan that kind of running by Rebecca Davis, the administrator, and hopefully we'll be before the commission with that planting plan. And once we have that kind of they're okay with it, we'll bring that to the zoning board.
Okay. Yeah, I heard there might have been some push and pull with like where the building's located and moving it further from the river, and then what does that do to the parking and back and forth? So again, if there's some of that, let's make, I don't know if I don't want to get into both boards sort of, they want it further away. We don't want to lose parking. You're already asking for relief on parking. What is the hotel going to want to do? They're not going to want to lose parking spaces, right? By pushing this building further away from the river. So I don't know where that stands, but I just don't want to get into both boards sort of pushing and pulling on the applicant here, Brian. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we had that discussion. We had that discussion with the commission, kind of those comments about trying to push the building forward, and we had the discussion about parking and that, we would lose parking if we did that. So I think they were okay with the location of the building as it shows now.
And just mitigating some things with the river and the landscape, whatever can be done to mitigate that buffer zone or any.
Yeah, I think
with the river. Yeah.
I think the feeling is that, they're very excited about the removal of, substantial amount of pavement being removed in the riverfront area. And they look at that as a big benefit.
And that the rest can dealt with without moving the building. Okay.
Yes.
No, I'm glad to hear that. I heard there was some of that. So I just wondered if that was sort of resolved or, okay, thank you. All right, board members, anything else for tonight? All right, so once again, we'll open up public testimony. If anyone has a comment or question, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting at this time. Seeing no comment, we'll close it to public testimony for the evening. So Brian, next step sounds like some potential sign option updates next time. Talk to the police chief. What else is on the bullet list, on your list?
We got to update that. We're in the process of updating the architectural because the way we had presented it with the elevations weren't correctly oriented. They were from a different site and they didn't have the exact striping of the building. So we can have that done in the next few weeks, right, Anthony?
Yeah, we're happy to bring the prototype design set in line with the the aesthetic direction here is rendered. So
yeah, they're not consistent. They're a little bit different. So we need to align those. Besides that, I think we're checking off the boxes.
Okay.
And one housekeeping thing on this, do you have the application there, Mr. Chair, the file?
I do.
And what's the date of the clock in on that? Because I think you might be at the point of the need for an extension on this.
It is February 21st. We have not extended it.
Yeah, you're right there. So
okay. I'm just looking.
Yep.
Because the last time we continued it, this letter. So
I don't think
from April 26th, we extended it to August 30th.
Oh, this one has it. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I notes. Oh, I got it. We already do. That's in my notes. Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
it. Yep, I
think
agree
we're
with
good
that.
for now.
I agree with that. Thank you.
All right, so updated architecturals, maybe updates on landscaping if you've made progress there with or if it's resolved. We got a plan. And I don't know. We'll see where we stand. I mean, it might be time to look at the next final phase. Is there going to be an O&M? Is there, draft conditions or something?
Well, there'd be conditions. I don't know about O&M. That would be up to the board.
Board members, what are you thinking?
Well, I think there'll need to be an O&M because we'll want to do lighting on the signage and
maintenance of it will be small and not crazy, but I think you'll need it because of Concom's rights too.
Yep, that's fine.
But I don't think we can move forward until we know what Concom's doing. To close it anyway.
Yeah. And on the lighting, yeah, I know it's 11 to 7. I think when we've used that as a general guideline, it's typically been what board members, 30 minutes after close or something. You know, if they close at 9, then what time are you proposing to close?
So typically, it honestly, it depends on how the operations team feels with the rhythms of the customer. Like, so on weekdays, they'll close at, 8 or 9 p.m. And then on weekends, they'll stay as open as late as 11 p.m. because people just, they want to come in. So that's something we'd be willing to work with, but typically the operations team it depends on the time of year too.
Okay, no, so it's not a set time like a retail operation where it's like Monday to, 7 days a week, 9 to 9. It's
So
going to
we
be,
found
maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes after close. Just something to think about. That would be in the
Yeah,
operation
absolutely.
as well.
Yeah, I
so
mean, in
whatever
some
the
in some
close is,
cities,
it's 30 minutes after that type of thing.
yeah, in some cities we aren't even open on like a Monday, for example, which is their slow days. So yeah, that's something if we design a policy for lighting timeframes around that's tied to the dynamics of our operations window. That's probably really functional.
Okay. All right. Anything else, board members? If not, we continue to June 14th, right, Marty?
I move that we continue this to June 14th.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right. Thanks for the
Great.
updates tonight. We'll see you in a few
Thank you
weeks.
all.
All right.
Perfect. Cheers.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Brian, do you have a preference?
Well, the folks from, I see Donnie is on now, so he's here, so you can go to 10 Broadway if you want.
Okay,
They can back up the top and then start back at Main Street.
the next continued. Okay.
Yep.
So we'll take the next hearing, continued hearing 23-39, 40, 41, and 42, New Creek LLC at 10 Broadway.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to bring up a PowerPoint. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail for the applicant New Creek LLC at 10 Broadway. And with me tonight is Donnie Lowe on behalf of New Creek. Ahmad Ali from Cube 3 is our architect, and John Oberon is back once again as our site civil. We didn't see a need to bring Jim Emanuel, our landscape architect, tonight. He's given testimony quite a bit so far, but we can bring him back because we do have some homework assignments on this as far as the green screen, et cetera. So we didn't forget those assignments, and we're working diligently on those. There were some other things that were suggested for us to look at balconies on Main Street to break up that facade. We didn't forget you. So that's in the works. More detail on the green screening for the garage that we talked about. And Chip, you wanted some places where you could visit and see it, and some board members wanted samples and materials. So we didn't forget you on that. Mr. McBain wants some sectional plans for review, and those are in process. Ahmad is working on those, and Joe wants some materials, samples, and also we would assign to work on the entry canopy to look at that to kind of give some options. That was something that Jim McBain have requested, and we'll continue to work with Jim if we have clearance from the board to do so on the architectural aspects. But in any event, tonight, Mr. Chair, you were requested that we provide some detail on the zoning dimensional components of the project for the board board to confirm that the footprint and the open area that's being proposed and the massing as we have modified are acceptable. So we're prepared to do that a little bit tonight and give the board some information to look at in that regard. As a precursor, from the application stage to this point, where we're at with the project today, and working with board member Jim McBain and Jim Emanuel, our landscape architect. As has been presented to the board through the hearings that we've had, there have been significant reductions in the size of the building and significant increases in the open area and landscaping that's being provided compared to where we started with the plans that were part of our initial application. As you'll see as I go through this, because of the changes to date that have been required by your board and worked on by Mr. McBain, the project now results in over 3 times more open area on the property compared to the existing conditions as they are today. So there is a very significant increase in open area from what's there today with Mike's Gym compared to what we're proposing with the project. And perhaps more important is that the increased open area, it's not only 3 times or over 3 times more, it's not made up of the weeds and the dirt that exist on the property today, because that's the open area on the property today. It's just the peripheral areas of the perimeter of the property, which is just kind of overgrown where it matches up with the industrial uses and then the old MBTA right of way. But instead of all that, the project makes a dramatic improvement both environmentally and aesthetically to the neighborhood by adding quality open area. And you'll see through the presentation that quality open area includes adding 73 new trees to the site, 290 new shrubs, and 65 grasses and perennials. So that I just kind of wanted to set the tone, and I'll go through that in some detail as I present this. So if I may, this is I'm going to go through the zoning table. I'm going to have a blow up of that. And I've actually got some comparisons to other projects that I thought would be of interest to the board when you look at this. This is just our updated site plan. If you remember, we have made a presentation that the building has been significantly shrunken down from what was originally proposed. The building used to be out all the way here, used to be bigger in this. And because of that, we've been able to add significant open area and landscaping in this area, here. We've added it in the public amenity area and then along the side of the building. So this is our zoning table. So I'm going to go through this to talk about where we are on as far as in compliance or what we need from relief, and then I'll move on and then I'm going to give you some examples of other projects and how they relate to this, just as comparison. So to start, in the multifamily under 190-32, you have to have a 4,000 square foot lot. This lot is a little bit unique because it's a combination. The underlying zoning on it is industrial and business. So if I can go back up here, wait for that to reset. This is our zone line that goes through the property, going this way. The majority of the lot is industrial. This whole front part out to Broadway is industrial. This little section in the back is business, but it is in both business districts. But our building is primarily in the industrial district. So that's what would really be controlling for the underlying district where the building is for the dimensional purposes. But we are showing both just for comparison. So for the multifamily bylaw, a lot has to have 4,000 square feet to qualify. A business in the business zone, you don't need any square footage for a lot, and an industrial lot has to be 20,000. So this lot is 99,372 square feet. It qualifies on every district that it's related to easily. Then you have the density calculations that's allowed under our bylaw because we're within that railroad district, 2,500 feet of the railroad station. And so it's 700, it's 1 unit per 750 square feet. So we're qualified to request 132 units under the special permit. And what we've provided is 106, what we're requesting at this point. As you know, that number has been reduced from what was originally applied for. Lot frontage for the under 190-32 multifamily, it's 180 feet. In the business district is 40 feet. Our frontage is actually in the industrial district on Broadway, which is 80. We have 261.78 feet. So we meet the requirements from that. Lot width 180 is required in the multifamily. We have, in the business district, it's 40 feet width, and industrial is 80. We have 126.68. So we don't meet that for the multifamily, but we easily meet it for the underlying zoning, and that's one of the requests for relief under special permit that we've asked for and are requesting. Floor area ratio. So there is no floor area ratio requirement in the multifamily. But in the business district and the industrial district, it's 1.5 is a requirement. So we are at 1.25. So we easily meet that for both underlying districts that are applicable to us, which you'll see as I move through this presentation is somewhat uncommon for multifamily projects because you have multiple floors. So the floor area ratio counts every floor in the building. So this is kudos to this project because it's well under the FAR requirement under for both underlying districts. It easily meets the requirement. The front yard, this is a funky calculation for the yard requirements. There has not been a multifamily 19032 project that has not needed relief on this. Because what it is under the multifamily, it's 30 feet or the height of the building, whichever is greater. When you're redeveloping in this area, in the downtown area, there's no lot that could accommodate that. So that's why under 19032.1, your board has special permit authority to reduce these requirements. But in any event, in the business district, and again, this isn't really applicable to us because our building's not there, but there's no setback requirements. We're in the industrial district where the building is. So in that district, for the front yard, you need to have 15 feet. Our building is actually 20.6. We meet that requirement. On one side, on the side is 20 feet. On the side that is near the railroad right of way, we don't meet that requirement, but we easily meet it on the other side. John's not even referencing on the table because we're far away. And then the rear setback is 20 feet and we're 122 feet. So again, easily meet that. So minimal relief needed on that.
But you don't need it for 19032 though.
Correct. Yeah, I said,
So
but it's correct.
You need relief in that respect, but not.
We need relief.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. Yes, yeah, we do. Yep. Maximum number of stories. There is no story limitation in the business and or the industrial district. In the multifamily, 5 stories, and that's what we're proposing. So no relief for that. Maximum height. So in the mid-rise, 19032, the maximum height is 50. In the business district, it's 60, and in the industrial district, it's 60. We're at 53.33. So we're asking for a little bit of relief on that. Then the maximum building coverage. So the multifamily is 35%. In a business district, you can cover 80% of the lot. In an industrial district, you can cover 50. This is interesting, you know, and it really interested me to look at this. The existing building coverage on that site is 16.1%. So that Mike's Gym has a pretty big footprint. You know, ours pretty much doubles it a little bit more. But you know, I was surprised that it's, you know, it's not like the footprint. I was surprised that Mike's Gym's building is that big, but in any event, we're at 34.7%. We meet the requirement. So our building, we're not asking for any relief for the footprint size of our building on that site. It meets the requirement under all components of all applicable districts in the bylaw. And then the minimum open area in the mid-rise is 30%. It's only 10% in the business and 20% in the industrial. And this is, I think, this is what I was talking, that we tripled the size of the open area, because the open area on that site today is only 8.8%. We're actually taking it up to 28.8%. So we meet it.
You don't count the parking lot, right? In that existing, that doesn't count as open area, right?
No, the parking lot doesn't count as open area under.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just the surrounding strips of
That's
land.
right. Yep.
Yeah.
That's a definition of open area in our bylaw. Yeah. So it's 28.8% open area, quite a step up from what's there today. We meet it for the underlying districts. We just miss it by like 1.2%. So we're asking for relief for that. Okay.
Okay.
So moving
Brian,
on.
Brian, quick question.
Yep.
On the table, you were going between multifamily and mid-rise apartment.
One and the same, Chip.
Called it
Yeah.
multifamily, sometimes you called it mid-rise.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what you call it, right?
It's one and the same, but I shouldn't, it's under 190.32 multifamily
It's-
mid-rise. Yeah.
Is
Yep.
it multifamily or one?
Well, it's a multifamily, it's yeah, it's a multifamily development. So basically, under our bylaw, multifamily developments include either townhouse developments, garden apartments, or mid-rise apartments. If it's 1 to 3 stories, it's a garden apartment. And these dimensional requirements vary a little bit for that. If it's 4 or more stories, it's a mid-rise apartment.
Right, so this is a mid-rise apartment under the multifamily.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, all
Yep.
right.
And these are the dimensional requirements.
And actually, Brian, before you leave lot width, where do you measure the lot width? Because of the shape of that lot is not consistent.
Yeah, it's odd the way you do it. John, do you want to touch on that? How you dealt with that? Let me go back up to the you go back to here. John?
Yeah, I mean, you can see that, the out near Broadway and North Ave, the lot is fairly wide and it narrows down as you go towards the rear of the lot. And the lot width is basically calculated through the building. So that's the distance or the width of the lot, basically at the rear of the building.
And how is that chosen?
If you look at Tom, if you look at the definition of our lot width, which I can bring it up if you want, it's so convoluted.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's just
Sometimes
Yeah.
you have to do it. Sometimes it actually takes trial and error to see because the way it's written, you can pretty much draw that lot width. It's not in the same direction of the building. It's basically the back corner that has the shortest distance between the two side lot lines. And so sometimes you have to play around with it to find the actual shortest distance.
the terrible definition of lot width.
Yeah, I mean, it actually goes from 100% to 90% of the lot frontage to 100%
The 75%.
to 75%. So
Yeah.
it's very confusing.
Okay, so it wasn't just me. All right.
No. Okay, so this is, I just want to kind of show, this is the existing conditions plan. And, this highlights, the open, and you can see this is a pretty big footprint when you really look at it, this building, which kind of, surprised me. You really don't focus on it because it's kind of tucked in the back of the lot. But in any event, it is a good size. And this plan really highlights that all you're seeing in green here is the open area, that 8.8%. So really just along this perimeter here, and then a little bit over here near the railroad. And, again, it's dirt and weeds because that's just what's happened over there between the property lines. So it's really non-valuable open area that's taking place on that site today. And this is the latest rendition. So this was the presentation that we put on with James Emanuel when we reduced the building. We cut it pretty far back. And this highlights all of the open area now. And this is all going to be quality open area. If you remember, when we reduced the building, we added this open area in that wasn't there before originally. We enhanced this area, which is now going to be public amenity space for the public and pedestrians. And then we also were able to add this open area in the back, which will be utilized by the residents in their Crystal Lake. And we're able to utilize this area here.
Yeah, Brian, on that last area there, the area between the building and the fence.
Yeah.
What's the orientation there? And has there been analysis? Is that place going to ever get any sun between the fence and the building?
Yeah, so I think, Tom, that might have been the meeting that you weren't there, and perhaps, I know you will look at the thing, maybe you already have, but
Yeah.
we actually gave like a pedestrian experience with how that's going to be, and we're happy to put that back up if you want to see it. we can do that. And
I was just more of like a shadow analysis, not a pedestrian analysis.
yeah, I don't know. I don't think we have, but we can, Tom.
Well, you can look at that, at the north arrow there. It's going to get east light and some south light.
What's that mean in layperson's terms, Jim?
It means that in the morning, you're going to get light along that whole edge. And then as it comes south, it will start to disappear and go around the corner. Because obviously there's no light coming from the north, and the north is basically the front of the building on Broadway. Okay.
Tom, is that good enough for you? Would you like us to do something more to present? Whatever.
No, I just don't think it's going to be quality open space. I don't know, because I don't think it's going to get that much light, but I won't belabor it.
Okay. Okay, so this is a little bit detail of how, as I talked about at the beginning, that what's going to be put here is going to be quality open area and plantings compared to what's there now. And as I stress, we're actually going to add, when you look at the perimeter of the site, we're going to add 73 new trees on the site. And we're going to add 290 new shrubs and 65 grasses and perennials that are going to be planted on this property. So it's really going to have quite a streetscape landscaping effect on the area. I mean, you know what you have for a curb cut here, where Mike's Gyms is. It's basically just all pavement and continuous curb cut. And now you're actually going to have some street trees and plantings along the edge here, which are really going to enhance the streetscape.
Brian, I have a question about parking because it relates to this. You didn't run through the parking calculations in the zoning table. I'm not trying to preempt you if that's where you're going, but where are we with parking calculations?
Yeah, I was going to get there, Greg, but we do meet the requirement.
Okay.
So
So without knowing the numbers, and my question was going to be, we're at 28.8%. Couldn't find another 1.2% in there to not for parking, for open space to actually meet the bylaw, rather than ask for, if you can meet parking and you can find another 1.2% in there, why not do both?
we can try. I mean, we're always open to trying. So,
I mean, the more green space, the better, and the less relief, the better. So,
yep. No, I hear you. It's such a, point well taken. So. Okay, so then what I did is I wanted to do kind of like a comparison to other projects, just to kind of give the board an idea. I thought it might be helpful to you in context, because some of these projects are built and you know them and you know how they look on the property. So I want to present this, and I'm not doing it. I want to be clear. I'm not doing this to say, oh, this is precedent. So, you have to do this, because that's not the case. I've always come before this board and said, there's no precedent. Every project has to stand on its own. So I want to just tell you the context that I'm doing this in, because I just thought it might be helpful to give the board information for consideration, because these projects, they've actually been built. So you can see how they play out. So as a comparison, I took, our project and I compared it to 175 North Ave, where Tono's is, 69 Foundry Street, which both of those are built and operating now. And then also 6276 Foundry Street, which is where Crystal Lumber was in the Taylor warehouse. That hasn't been built, but it's been permitted. I didn't include Harvard Mills. Those numbers would have been incredibly favorable to us, but I thought that wasn't fair, because it's not a brand new project. It was a rehabilitation project. It was an effort to save the mill buildings and prevent them from, being taken down at some point. So it really, to me, was kind of an apples and oranges comparison. So I didn't include that. So when you look at, when you compare these, first you look at the size of the site. So we're at 99, about 100,000. North Ave's at 51. Foundries at 75,000, and then I'll call this our 69 Foundry, and then I'll call this the Crystal Lumber. So and Crystal Lumber's at 45,996. So now you look at the density that's being proposed and what's been approved. And so we're allowed to have 132 units. We're now requesting we're requesting 106. So we're 26 below the density count that would be allowed. At 175 North Ave, they were allowed to have 68 units. They applied and received a special permit for 60. So they were only 8 under what was allowed. Then you have 69 Foundry. They were allowed 100 units. They received a special permit for 83. They were 17 less than what's allowed. And then Foundry was at 61. I'm sorry, Crystal Lumber was at 61. They were allowed and they received 58, just under. So we're less than any other project as far as density goes, because we're 26 under what would be allowed by the square footage that we have in comparison. Lot frontage, we have 261, a lot of lot frontage. Every one of them, is pretty decent. 184, 337 at 69 Foundry, and then Crystal is 249. Lot width, we're at 131, 190 at North Ave, 69, just a square lot, 322, and then Crystal Lumber is 249, pretty much a square lot too. But this is interesting. So the floor area ratio, as I mentioned, they all have this 1.5 requirement. We're at 1.25. We are better than anybody on floor area ratio on this site. We easily meet it, far exceed it. 175 North Ave had to get a special permit under 190/30.2 for dimensional relief to go above the allowed 1.5. So they were at 2.06. 69 Foundry met it at 1.3, but they, a little bit less than, they didn't meet it as much as we did. But then Crystal Lumber also needed a special permit. They were at 2.02. So neither 175 or 762 or Crystal Lumber met the FAR requirement. As far as front yard goes, we're at 20.6. 175 North Ave is right on North Ave at 6.6. 69 Foundries only 6 feet, and Crystal Lumber is 6.5. So, and I point these out. I don't think these setbacks really matter because none of them really meet it, and every one of them needs relief, and it really depends on the area that they're in. But I'm just going to present them because they're on the table. On side yard, we're at 12 feet with the overhang. 175 North Ave is 4.8. 69 Foundry is 40, just because of where it is, and then Crystal Lumber is only 10. And then the rear, we have a ton at 122. 175 North has a lot too at 72. Foundry has 27. 69 Foundry and Crystal Lumber has 46. They all meet the requirement in the underlying district. Only us and 175 North Ave would meet it under the mid-rise or multifamily bylaw. So 69 Foundry and Crystal Lumber both needed relief for that, and they received it. All of the buildings on these sites are 5 stories, except for this is wrong. That's a typo. That's a 5-story. So they're all 5 stories. And then maximum height. So this is interesting. I'm sure the board's interested in this comparison. As I've mentioned, we're at 53.33. 175 North Ave is at 59. 69 Foundry is right about where we are. So that gives you a good sense of the height of the building, 53.7. And Crystal Lumber is about 65, 64.7. Then the maximum building coverage. So this is really interesting because we're the only ones that meet this out of all the projects. The maximum building coverage is 35%. As I mentioned, we're at 34.7. We meet that requirement. 175 North Ave that actually has building coverage of 61.9. So they receive relief for that. 69 Foundry has building coverage of 44.1, and Crystal Lumber has it at 47.5. So none of those projects meet it. They receive relief. We don't need relief on that. And then the minimum open area, 30%. We're at the 28.8 that we mentioned. And there's only one project that met it. That was 69 Foundry. 175 North Ave only has 14.8% open space, about half what we have. They receive relief for that. And the same thing for Crystal Lumber at 15.4%. So that's just, I hope that provides, I thought it might be helpful for the board to just kind of see what, how other projects relate, where how they look and you're familiar with those plans because they've been permitted. And these are just kind of some slides reiterating the open area. And this is the pedestrian that we're dealing with. This is the area, Tom, that we talked about, which is between the MBTA right away, where we plan on having a dog walking area and, maybe some cornhole and places of recreation. And then this is the open area on the backside, kind of in the corner that we were able to add with the landscaping. And then this is the park in the back near Crystal Lake. So with that said, you would ask for that. And then I guess going back to the parking that Greg had talked about at the beginning. So we need 1.5 spaces for 106 is a total required of 159. And we meet that requirement at 159. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have. And, and again, I want to reiterate, as the board knows, that out of 106 units that we're proposing, 19 of them are going to be affordable housing units. And lastly, we've talked about it, but this site has been designated by the Housing Production Plan as a site for a project of this nature. And we actually have a memo that was sent by Erin Kokinder, who talked about that exact thing, that this was designated for that use.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Board
I hope
members,
that
any
I hope that helps, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to go back to any tables or anything that might be helpful to the board, but I think that addresses what you asked me to do, and maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely, as usual, above and beyond. We'll need a copy of this presentation too.
Yep.
And we only got the site plan ahead of time, but not the rest of it, so.
Yep.
Okay, board members, any comments or questions? Okay. And that was the extent of the updates for tonight, Brian?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
what we're kind of looking for from the board is that we're, from a footprint perspective, because we'd like to take a deeper dive, as I've mentioned, you have a very, you have a property owner here, not just a developer, a property owner who has resources, has capabilities, has a desire to work with the town and work with the board. So we're looking to take a deeper dive on architectural with Mr. McBain on some of the things that the board raised at the last meeting on potentially adding some balconies or working on the massing on the Main Street side of the building, because we're not done with that. But I think what you had said, Mr. Chair, before we do that and spend more money, we kind of want to make sure that the board is okay where we are with the footprint here, because we don't want to go off on a lost chase.
Okay, well, I think what you heard were some concerns about overall massing. So I would say, as you continue those deeper dives, any and all opportunities to maybe gain that greater open space and reduce footprint somehow, whether it's units or somehow, I think that should be part of that. I mean, it's headed in the right direction, right, from where it was originally presented, in my mind, to where we are today. But board members, do you want to add to that? I mean, without rehashing all of the previous concerns, which I think the applicant has heard.
No, my position hasn't changed. I think Brian's heard it, and so has the applicant.
Mhm. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Why don't we open up the public testimony? If anyone from the public has a comment or question at this time, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting. Seeing no hands being raised, we'll close it to public testimony for the evening. So June 14th, Brian?
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, what's our direction? Do you want us to work with Jim? Continue to do that on some of the things that were raised?
That's what I think. Board members? Awful quiet bunch tonight, guys.
I'm
think-
fine. with you.
Okay.
I think,
I see the applicant, Donnie. I see your hand raised. Do you want to add something?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the question is we've looked at this site pretty hard with our site engineer, and he's been fantastic at squeezing every square inch of green space available. What if we're unable to provide any more green space? We're 1.2% away from compliance. I mean, if we got that 1.2%, will that be good enough to satisfy the board?
Again, it was a suggestion, you're asking for several forms of relief as part of the special permit. And we have to apply all the criteria of the special permit, right? They go beyond just, the table of dimensional regulations, right? It was a suggestion. It would be, if you were able to do it, then it would be one less form of relief you would need from the board. But that, in my mind, wouldn't make or break the project. That's not really what's the gating factor here. It's the overall concern that at least one, maybe other board members share, is just the overall size and density of the project, even though it has come down from where it was originally proposed. So that is perhaps the crux of it, not that one item. And again, we have to apply all the criteria, as Brian knows all too well, all the criteria of a special permit, right?
Yeah.
And that the overall project, there may be concerns with meeting some of the criteria, right? And being able to, satisfy in their minds that they meet some of that criteria. So
I think what Don's getting at is we've been candid, or they've been candid, that they really have, they can't reduce the density. They can't reduce the size. They can work with massing. They might be able to do something on that, but we've heard from Mr. Lucy. We just don't know where other board members are, because we don't want to waste a lot of time and money on this with design and going back with architects. That we're kind of looking for feedback from the other board members, how they stand on the size and the massing of the project. I think it's well in line with what's been approved before in the area. I think it's actually better than anything else in many ways, of all the numbers that I presented on the projects. So we were hoping to get that feedback tonight, because Kimco has to make some decisions on this property, what they want to do with it. And they have investors that Don's going to go back to their board tomorrow, and he's going to say, what happened? Where are we? And we really need some direction, that if we're going to keep investing money into this on design, et cetera, that we know that the requisite number of board members are somewhat okay with where we are from perspective. We appreciate Mr. Lucy's candor and honesty, and we're kind of hoping to get some additional feedback, Mr. Chair, if that's possible, if it could happen, because it's somewhat important for the applicant at this point.
okay, Joe, I see your hands up.
Yeah, so for me, Brian, so you have the parking, so I appreciate that. I always look for that. If you don't have the parking, I always try to tell you guys to go back and see if you can get the parking. The green space, 1% to me is not a big deal. I said last week at the last meeting, I understand where Tom's going with the height, but I wouldn't expect you to drop a floor. To me, it's not exactly on the main street. It's off the beaten path a little bit. And with that, the percentage rate with the, where is it, the 750 square feet, because you're closer to the, you're closer to the train, so you get that, so you could squeeze more units in, so. I don't know, I mean, I've been going to that gym for 5 years now, so I'm gonna miss that gym, but that whole area is it's kind of a dump, to be honest with you. So I think in my eyes, this will, take that area and brighten it up a little bit. I guess I do have one question. That you mentioned a couple of weeks ago about traffic. Are you guys looking to add a light there, or you think you got the go ahead, or if that's something in the works?
Yeah, so what Bill Renault is looking for us to do is he's looking for us to engineer and fund the study, fund the provide the engineering to be able to put a left-hand turn. I talked about this. It's a huge benefit of this project that when you come over, I've lived on the west side all my life. When you come over the tracks and head towards Main Street, you can't take a left. You're trapped. So you have to go to that light and go through downtown, or people take
You're
it.
talking a left on, but to make almost like a U-turn to get onto North Ave.
Yes. So what Bill Renault and the TAC are going to require us to do, or request us to do, and we've said that we would do it, is to provide the engineering resources to design for that to be able to happen, the roadway engineering, the survey work, and then also to make a financial contribution to do that. It would not probably get us the whole way, but it would be a good amount that would satisfy Bill and the TAC, that would pave the way for that to happen in the future.
Is that a light, or is that just like a?
It would be a traffic light, because we would do the survey work, and we've already done the preliminary work that shows that it works. And we've gone over that with Bill, and he agrees that you can put in conjunction with our project, you'll be able to put an exclusive left-hand turn lane there. So now if people want to go left, they can, but if people want to go through straight to go to Nahant Street, they'll be able to do that on Broadway.
I like that idea. Just that a lot of times you mention the word light to people, another traffic light, people fall over. They're like, oh,
this is desperately, this is needed in that area.
Yeah, I know a lot of people just take the left anyways.
The town engineer is very excited about the prospects of this.
Yeah.
So is the town peer review.
Yeah. So, going back, to my opinion, I like the building. When I mention this building to a lot of people, the whole thing is that traffic, that whole corner is a mess, and there's going to be even more traffic. But being on the board for 4 years now, and I've been listening to you, and a lot of these projects, like you said, you read the reports, a lot of these projects bring the traffic down, because at Mike's Gym, between 5 in the morning and 9 in the morning, that place is crazy. You put an apartment complex there, people are coming and going at different times. So, if that's the truth, that's what it says in the traffic report, and that's what seems like it's been happening throughout the years on these other projects that, been going in. So, my opinion stands. I like the project, so I'm in favor of it. That's where I stand.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Jim, I see your hands up.
Yeah, so I look at this in the way that what's going to happen over time, and having a section of town, which is an old industrial section, and Joe's already mentioned the appearance of the area. That's not it used to be a train yard. It was coal chutes and everything else in there, and it really hasn't progressed much from those days. And I look at the Foundry Street and out towards Albion, basically, where in fact there's lots of apartments in that area, and the apartments are now sort of coming down Foundry Street. And over the next number of years, whether it be 10, 15, whatever years, is more and more stuff's going to fill in there. So this becomes sort of the end of that group of buildings, and it keeps those larger buildings in their own little area, and it doesn't come down to downtown. I like to see the scale of downtown stay the same, and certainly with 466, which is before us now, that's the sort of scale, that's 2 or 3 stories basically on Main Street, and dresses up a place in Main Street that had been ignored for a huge amount of time, basically, and it may extend itself even further right down towards Jiffy Lube. But anyways, my point being basically the planning of this area over time is going to change. So I think this melds in with what's going to happen between there and the other end of Foundry eventually. So I don't see this as disruptive. I see as encouraging more development down here in form of stores and stuff like that, or even that plaza that's across the way. They're going to get a huge infusion eventually there. So, and we know there are a few lots over there that have been considered for housing, which are still vacant, so to speak. So I just look at this in the long term as opposed to short term, I guess, in my mind, and keeping the housing, the bigger pieces of housing off Main Street and into a section basically that can develop within its own. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Chip, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I'm mute, Chip.
I'm on mute, sorry. No, I'm good. I think they did some reductions. I think it's an area that needs to get upgraded. I like the planting plan. You know, I think the ratios that Brian showed are not necessarily eye-opening or eye-popping or any of that, but they're good to know. And you know, when you look at 132 units allowed and 106, you know, just to go that we're 26, you'd have to go the percentages to actually really understand, you know, that. But I'm good. I like the building, and I would like a little bit more development on the, I guess I'd call it Main Street side or car dealership side. And maybe a little something more at the front entrance, but yeah, I'm pretty good.
Okay,
We're not-
thank you, Chip.
We're not done working with Mr. McBain. We just wanted to know if it's worthwhile to keep doing that, so.
So did you get what you needed? Did you hear what you needed to hear?
Yeah, unless you'd like to make a comment, Mr. Chair.
No, I appreciate you providing this analysis. I'm encouraged that it's headed in the right direction.
Okay,
So I'm okay as well.
And very quickly, I was the one who made that 1.2% open space, but definitely don't, take away parking to get there. So. just
no, I
something to look
appreciate
at.
that comment, Greg. I think it's a valid comment.
Yeah.
Whenever you're that close, you say,
Yeah.
why, yeah, no.
Yeah. And without the context, not knowing that, I think Johnny said you have looked extremely hard at it. I don't think we had heard that before. Knew you looked at it, but not. So if you can get it, you can get it. Can't.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll continue to work with Jim. So thank
right.
you.
So June 14th.
June 14th, we're gonna get working hard. Yep.
Okay. Well, and if there aren't as much update, we'll continue, but at least it's on the agenda, right?
Yeah. And you're extended now. I think you need to talk about an extension on this because I think you're only extended through June 30th on this right now.
Okay, let me just double check. I can have that letter.
That's what I
It
have.
is. It is. You want to go to August 30th as well?
Yep.
Okay, so continue the hearing to June 14th and extend the time to render a decision to August 30th. I would entertain such a motion. So moved. Thank you. Thank you. Second. Somebody.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, regular voting members, Tom,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Chip, you're on mute again.
Sorry. Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, thanks for the updates. Please send the presentation over so we have that electronically, and we'll see you in a few weeks. All
Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's time,
right, have a good night.
comments.
Thank you.
All right, next new here, continued hearing 23-70, 71, and 72. A&E Realty Trust at 460 to 466 and 472 Main Street.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Brian McGrail for the applicant, and we're going to be efficient as usual on this. We have our team here, but the relevant member tonight is Steve DeFuria from Phoenix, and Steve is going to update you. We're working with the town engineer on all the other stuff, but we're continuing to move forward. We're taking your comments on the architectural and taking advantage of that time, and Phoenix does a good job of working quickly on this stuff. He's done some updates based on your last comments, and I'm going to hand it over to him for efficiency purposes. Steve, could you share your screen?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. For the record, Steve DeFuria representing Phoenix Architects. Again, as Brian said, I'll keep it kind of brief on kind of what we've updated. So in terms of plan, everything's still the same that we've had prior. Still 6 retail spaces on the first floor, 22 parking spaces out back. And then on the second and third floor, we still have 16 units, 2 one-bed studios, 10 one-bedrooms, and then 4 2-bedrooms. I think a lot of the comments that we got from the last board meeting was taking a look at historic precedents, especially in downtown Wakefield, similar projects that start to have sort of that old world architecture feel, but obviously translating that into a modern day building. I just wanted to show you guys what we had last time. Again, you can start to see at the center point of the building, trying to reconfigure windows in a way that, playing with the height, reconfiguration, that it starts to anchor the center point of the building and also the front entry. And I think there were comments from last time about the trim work. You can see in our old iteration, sort of the banding just had 1 layer to it, both on the cornice, but also the banding separating the residential and the retail. So what we started to work through is again, starting to add those layers. All that translates back to, sort of those precedent photos of old downtown Wakefield, similar buildings. So you can start to see, especially at the banding at the retail, really starting to layer that up, 2, 3, 4 layers of trim. Starting to give it that historic charm, starting to do the same thing at the cornice detail up above. And I think a lot of precedents that we started to look at was a little bit more detail on the window trim. So you can see prior, we just had a simple flat stock with a crosshead detail around. Now we're taking it a step further where, zoom in here for you guys. Where now we're starting to implement, a little bit of detail around the trim, historic sill on the windows, keystone for the crossheads. All that starts to translate with the arch windows in the center. Again, trying to have a typology where we're anchoring the center. So we felt like these arch windows started to carry that historic flavor, but also anchor the center of the building. And a lot of this detail become more apparent in the CAD. So again, you can start to see a little bit of trim work with the banding. What it allowed us to do with a little bit of a deeper overhang is add dental blocks on the retail section now, which starts to anchor the cadence of the retail doors, the retail panels, starts to carry with the brackets up above, and also starting to implement a dental block detail on the corners. So again, starting to add in those layers that I think was the feedback from us from last time. So again, just comparing what's there now to what we're proposing. Same concept still applies from the last iteration, that everything around the street side is going to carry that detail. Those layers will still apply. But then obviously you can see as we start to make our way towards the back of the building, that detail gets a little bit more simplified since it's off the beaten path. Again, still implementing layers to the trim. You can see we've got a double layer of 1x6 trim up above with the 1x8 freeze board. So again, while we're still scaling back some of that detail, still implementing layers as we work our way back. And then I'll just jump quickly around the sides. This is the back of the building. We made the executive decision of actually shortening up the height of the windows as you start to wrap around the back. I think just from a privacy perspective and how close we are to the setbacks, it just makes more sense to keep those a traditional size, let the windows in the front be much taller. And then again, the right side sort of carrying the detail along the street side. Tall glass in the retail area, and then it starts to simplify around the back. And again, looking at the view with the existing streetscape, and then starting to overlay our building on top. So still working with the scale of the surrounding buildings, maintaining actually the existing height of this parapet wall here, so we're not increasing the height of the building. And then what we also started to look at, we're viewing it in the daytime, but also starting to conceptualize ways for lighting the building as well. So you can see on the face of the building, starting to bring in some lantern light wall sconces, just as accent lighting across the building to start to break it up. And then at the retail portion, since we're layering that banding detail, it allows us to implement some cove lighting there. So since we have the bays going across there, it's kind of hard for us to put some lighting up above to shine on the signs. So we felt like the cove lighting was the best approach so far. But again, just as a starting point, happy to hear comments on the lighting as well. And then I think some comments, I think it was Joe had asked, just different views up and down Main Street. So taking a look at the building right by the intersection of West Water, looking down, you can see how the building starts to fit in terms of scale, but also color palette. I know there was discussion about material and colors in the last meeting, but I think it starts to show the browns and tans that exist around the site. And then viewing it a little bit closer as you start to rotate, again, you can see that concept of that detail starts to wrap the corner of the building, gets exposed from the street side. And then obviously when stuff starts to become less visible, obviously that detail starts to disappear. But you can even see that historic detail of dental blocks, both on the retail and up above in the corners, actually exist on the building next door as well. So again, carrying that historic architecture that also exists around the site. And then the last view is just looking at it from the opposite side, coming from downtown Melrose. Again, detail starts to wrap around the sides that we're presenting on the streetscape. And then obviously the building starts to get cut off with just the overall scale. So happy to answer any questions. I think, again, our main focus was just looking at precedents. I think Chip made the comment of we're starting to make this building historic. Let's start to add those layers. That's what we've been focusing on.
Okay, thank you. Board members?
I think it's going in a great direction. I'm really interested now into Bill Renault's approach on what we're going to do with the street and plantings and all of that. How are we going to tie this thing into what they're planning on doing, and what's parking going to look like, and bump outs and things like that? Because I think they're at a point now architecturally, I'm kind of fine with it, but I want to know how we integrate this with what everybody's been talking about.
Yeah, I have a meeting with him tomorrow, Chip.
That will do it.
Yep. We know it. We're working on it.
I mean, that's the piece to me that's going to pull this thing together.
Okay, looking forward to hearing updates from that.
Yep.
So I like the look. I like the old look of the building. Kind of brings you back to where those pictures that Jim sent out a few months ago. I don't know if that's the direction we're heading, trying to look in the, look back. I almost feel like I should have a place to tie up my horse when I get there, but I do like the look. I like I said, like what Jim brought out. I don't know. It doesn't really match some of the building to the left, because that's more of a stucco look, but I don't know if we want to head in that direction of the stucco look. I know there's a couple buildings that way across the street, the CVS, but it's a little too, industrial for me, but thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
And I too like the direction this has been taking. I'm not sure about the rounded windows in the center. It becomes too many window types. It's almost like a Roscoe window catalog, basically. That the other one with the square rectangular windows with a clear story above it sort of plays off the other windows there without competing with them at the same time. Although having said that, the alley in the back that goes to the back door with the rounded windows at the top look quite elegant basically there, but there's no comparison. And it's almost like church-like in a way. It has no real comparison to look at other windows. It's an element under itself with the entry. whereby the front is basically competing with the other windows and just shows another catalog window sitting in the front. So that's the thing that sort of bothers me. Could I live with it? Sure. Would I prefer the square ones? Yes. Then the other thing you're talking about, cove lights for lighting, is because there might not be a way of doing goosenecks or something like that. And maybe we don't want goosenecks. But it seems to me that any sort of cove lighting detail probably wants to light up as opposed to light down, because when someone looks up, they're going to be looking into the cove light as opposed to something that's down and projecting up into the signage. But I think that will need some study, basically. And of course, I'll be looking for some sections and details eventually with all the elegant detail that you've got in here. I don't mind the fact that the windows in the rear, like most old buildings, were slightly different in size and the like, because they were the building. They're not the accent. They're not the front door. Like anybody's house, particularly houses today, you've got the McMansion front and there's a stark rear. It's not different basically in the past century. And as far as Joe's horse, I guess he's buying a red Mustang, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Mickey, I think your hand was up next.
I think that it's great, and it'll be a wonderful addition as it looks now. If it needs to be tweaked with those windows, that's fine. Every time I drive through Melrose Center every morning, there's on the right as you're coming in, there's like a Beacon Hill wine store, and there's like a Remax or something, but it's the exact same building, almost the exact same length. So if you want to know what this is going to look like, just drive through Melrose. It's right on the right as you're going in, and it's a nice looking building. It really enhances that downtown. It'll definitely do that for here.
Mickey, is that the tannin? It's got like green trim on it. Is that the building I'm thinking of?
No, I think it's actually this color. Right as you go in, I don't know what that. It's right across from Pepperberry or whatever, and
it's across from Town Hall too.
Right across from Town Hall, right as you go through that satellites. Yeah.
it's a handsome building. So this would be similar.
Good point. Thanks, Mickey. Greg?
Yeah, just one comment. I would wholeheartedly disagree with Jim on the windows in the middle. I like the something different, something exciting. Don't do square windows. Keep those windows in there. They're different than anything we've done. Let's do something different here, as we are doing with the whole building. I like it. Keep those.
Like I say, I won't fall out of bed, go in a different direction. But
It's just something different, something exciting. Square is square. It's, to me, a catalog window is a square window. This we don't see anywhere else in town much, on newer buildings. We've never seen anything presented to us like this.
Yeah, we looked at a couple that had a couple statement windows in them that had either, like a half round transom up above, or like an oval window kind of anchored the center. I think that's kind of the typology we took it over. We tried looking into, maybe across the front, starting to implement the arches a little bit more. But we were a little conscious of the client's money a little bit. So I think trying to, again, I think the focal point's always been the center of the building, and how do we differentiate it between, we're doing things like break the cornice detail and raise it up a little bit. We're bringing that awning out over the front entry. So again, I think there's either direction we could go. I'm just breaking up the building a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you found stained glass windows to fit in there is really magnificent.
Yep.
Dave, I would just add, I agree with everyone said, so I won't belabor it. The one thing that crossed my mind though is you have spaces for 6 retail tenants there.
At the moment, yeah, 6. We had talked about, I think a lot of it depends on, whoever they get for a tenant in there, if they're looking for more space, and they'll have the ability, say, take retail space 1 and 2 and combine it. So, but I think at most 6 will be what gets in there.
Yeah, it just seemed like really small floor plates if there's only gonna be at least 6. So, but I don't know, maybe even check with Ms. Kakinda, who's moving into town, what type of floor plates they want, but there's flexibility, it doesn't matter.
Because if we envision another restaurant there, that conceivably could be 2 or 3, whatever. Depends on what kind of business, yeah. But good point, Tom. Okay. Anything else, board members? At this time?
Real quick, this building's not getting torn down, right? Just rehabbing it?
So, yeah, we don't know. I think the goal would be try and get a structural engineer in there sooner rather than later, kind of walk it with the plans that we have it. I think we're, especially with the parking out back, we're doing a lot of work with the foundation to get that to work right. We did the best that we could with the structural grid to kind of hold it, but I think it's going to start to get to a certain point, and Joe, you're kind of hinting to it of, you might just be better off knocking it down and starting over in place.
Yeah.
So, but right now, up in the air, I think we're just going to do a little bit more exploration.
Yeah, no, I hear.
Mickey, did you have something else, or was your hand just still lingering up there?
Hey, can I share the screen, Steve? Can you stop? I gotta
Yeah.
share.
Okay, thanks. All right.
Just want to show, I think this is the building Mickey's talking about.
Yeah, you're right on.
Yep.
Just
It
similar,
really does, Mickey. Mickey, you're spot on that. Really reminds you of it. Yep.
but it's yeah, it's very, very similar in feel.
Yep.
Agreed. Cool. All right, we'll open up the public testimony. If any member of the public has a comment or question, please raise your hand at this time in the Zoom meeting. Seeing no hands, we'll close up the public testimony for the evening. Brian, we're okay with this one because of the special permit, time-wise?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, June 14th?
Yes. I'm going to be seeing the town engineer tomorrow.
I move that we continue this to June 14th.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the motion? Regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Yes.
Tom,
Yes,
and I vote yes, that's unanimous. All right, thanks for the updates tonight. We'll see you in a few weeks. Have a good night.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, our final continued hearing, 23-77, 78, and 79, Northeast Warehouse Boston LLC at 3 Melvin Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Brian McGrail representing the applicant on this also. With me tonight is John Ogren from Hayes Engineering. Atan Satuku is our architect. He is also here, and I believe Jerry, are you here?
Yep.
Jerry's here too. Jerry's the owner of the property, the principal of the property. So this is Atan, do you want to share your screen on this? Because you're going to present it. Would you like me to do it? Because I have it ready if you don't. You're on mute.
I can do it.
Okay, so Atan's bringing his screen up, and you can leave it there for a minute just to kind of reorient the board. So this is as you know, this is the addition that Northeast Warehouse is looking to add on to their property on 3 Melvin Street. We presented to the board at the last hearing. We had tried to maximize parking because of the excessive parking requirements for a warehouse, which really doesn't make sense. The board suggested that we lose a number of parking spaces, enhance some landscaping, which we've been able to do. We have a landscaping plan that we'll be presenting at the next meeting. We hired Jim Emanuel on this to make sure that we know what the goal is to put in some good trees to kind of work with the facade of the building. But what we want to really present to you tonight is the architectural changes. As part of those, we've actually now have a total of 30 parking spaces that we kept in the front. We've lost 17 parking spaces. The project will work. The board had suggested that you'd rather have some green space at the front door, get rid of parking spaces. You'll see that on the landscaping plan. There were some roll-up doors on the side of the building facing Water Street to refresh your memory, you asked us to get rid of those and install higher windows in that area. And then you also wanted some windows installed on that facade to kind of break up the wall of the building. So we've also done that. We also have a roof plan to show you. We've taken your advice and have planned to be able to do solar panels on the roof. You'll see that. So that kind of sets the table for our tan. If you could take it from here.
Yeah, so I'll just pick it up from where Brian left it. So the main discussion last time, it was the number of parking. It seemed like the zoning board was agreeing with our reasoning that we do not need as much parking. So before we were trying to achieve this using every corner of the site, 47 parking spaces, and now we're taking this other approach, trying to minimize it to only what we need and trying to maximize the green space. And before, because we're trying to get close to that number required in the zoning code, we were using every corners like here around the buildings, and also this big block of parking here. And now with the opportunity to increase the green space, those corners were the ones that were sacrificed in that advantage, as well as these corner, the most visible corner from the Shoals parking lot. Where's the current entrance to the building? Since we're deactivating those 3 loading doors there, now might as well just greenscape everything in front of it. I'm going to move to, so this is our first floor plan, the only floor plan. This is just 1 story. Nothing has changed in terms of the building layout. And this is our proposed roof plan. Members of the board last time were interested into knowing if we're going to have any mechanical equipment on the roof, which we are showing schematically in this plan, as well as a good size of photovoltaic panels array. As you may remember from the last discussion, we will not be able to put any solar panels on the existing roof because it was deemed previously that was not satisfying their criteria in terms of structural strength. These are new elevations. So I want to zoom in and focus a little bit on issues that we talked about just one by one. First was these 3 deactivated loading doors. We were suggested to remove them, which we did, but rather than just leave a blank wall or just matching the existing and leaving just a blank wall there, we opted to install storefronts instead. It doesn't really add anything to the function of the warehouse. It's still a warehouse, but it makes the elevation a little bit more interesting on that most visible viewpoint. On the other side, on the addition side, we tried again to bring a little bit more movement into it. Even though it's like still a boxy building, it's still a warehouse, it has to go with its function in the back. So what we did here, we increased a little bit the size of the storefront. Here we took a look at locating some high windows to introduce some light into the warehouse area, and also make this corner again more interesting from the Shoals parking lot. In terms of location of these windows, they will have to go within the aisles between the racks of the warehouse, for which the layout we do not have 100% nailed down yet. So at one point, we'll have to work with the logistics specialist to come up with the maximum, with the most optimized layout for the warehouse, and that's gonna basically instruct the location and the size of these windows. But this is basically the language that we want to use. There is one opportunity here to kind of increase the number of the windows, because we have offices on the base of it, and we know that no racks are going to come in conflict with these openings. So that's why we opted for this kind of look. These are the other elevations. They haven't changed much, other than we are showing schematically the location for proposed signage. I know that at some point we had to discuss and to introduce that to the board. So given the scale of the building, we opted for a fairly big sign compared to what the board might have seen in other kind of developments. But it is one that kind of goes with the proportion of the building overall. So we are proposing one sign facing south, facing Water Street, basically, and one other sign facing our neighbor to the north. So these are basically the only locations where any signs would be visible from any public way. There are no other changes into the elevations. I'm going to move to the renderings. I think this does a good job to explaining everything what's going on. So this new higher massing here is our addition, and this lower one is the existing building. Like I said, we're not showing any solar panels here. I am showing schematically the existing HVAC equipment, and I'm showing the new proposed HVAC equipment there. As you can see, the building footprint is so big that we have the opportunity to really center them close to the center of the roof, and then make them not visible from any public way. You can see here like what's happening with this corner where we had 3 loading doors. Now we have a big green space with 4 trees in it. We kind of reshaped a little bit the parking lot here. We introduced another green island in the middle of it. And this would be the viewpoint from the Shaw's parking lot. So this is what most of the public would be able to see of our new building. So we have this sign, the new proposed sign in the corner, and this sign here is already existing. We are not planning any changes to it right now. And I think this is all the things that we discussed last time. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Board members?
Brian, go back on the question to parking numbers. They said you had like 30 spaces and you reduced it to 17.
No,
They count like
we
30.
now have a total of 30, which is 17 less than we had 47.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so we lost 17 parking spaces, Chip.
And you still think you need 30?
Yeah, Jerry, that's where you're comfortable with, right?
Mute.
Jerry, you there?
Yeah, yes, just for staff and visitors, I think 30 would be a good number.
Okay. I think it looks a lot less like a big warehouse now. Getting there.
I'm encouraged to see, a lot of the suggestions, the solar and, the increased green space. I mean, it's,
Can you do anything, or can you do anything and pull all these staircases inside the building, or, a vestibule of some sort? They're just, the front of the building just seems to have all these stairs.
That would be our first approach if you could do it. I mean, it's not something that we do as an architectural feature. It's just forced because of the grading.
So you're building a new building, right? Why do you need to have stairs up to a level that's 6 or 7 feet up?
I understand your point, and like I said, my first gut feeling would be the same. And when we started designing this, that's what we're trying to do, to bring everything like more normal. This is a new addition, but it's on an existing building, and being this a warehouse, the floor plate needs to be level. So they have to be able to pass from the existing space to the new space with forklifts.
But not in your offices and not in your main entrance. You don't have to put forklifts in your offices.
What I have to do is I have to provide means of egress from that warehouse space, so that anybody in case of danger is able to.
Right, so do it with stairs, do it with stairs inside the building.
Hmm.
I mean, what are you gonna do? Build up with gravel that whole, I mean, you're, I don't know the elevations, but are you trying to make all the floor decks match old to new?
Well, yeah, that was the idea.
Okay, so how?
You could have a recessed lobby inside that matches the grade
Right.
outside. And then, and all the transition happens in that recessed lobby to get up to the common plate, basically, for everything. Basically, I think that's what Chip is pushing at this point. I could see that actually being designed in, where in fact you'd have that, differential handled inside behind the glass. So you enter at
Right.
grade level, go in, and you confronted with a set of stairs going up or a ramp system basically in there.
And then you're not shoveling these ramps and de-icing these ramps and.
I could see, the stairways that are on the far side in that notch in the original, they probably could stay, but the entry into the building where most of the people are going to come in could be taken care of a little more graciously than shown here.
All right, good point. I'll look into it. There's still a matter of means of egress. People have to be able to exit from the main floor outside.
Well, you still got, it looks like you got that one door where that far right-hand stair is.
This one here.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that might be able to handle inside as well. Because you've got to have a stair going to the second floor, I got to imagine, because you've got offices up there. So if that's where the egress stair is, then it just means going down another half flight or so in that staircase in that corner as you get towards the first floor. So you take the second floor people, get in that staircase. On the way down, they pick up the first floor people, and then they got a half a flight or so down to get right out the doorway. I mean, I see the stairway there, so it's got to be there for a reason, which means to me that there's probably a stairway that takes care of the two levels at that location. It's just a matter of.
I just
And I just think the front of the building can be something with a little bit more green than just all these stairs and ramps.
Okay. You'll look at it, Arton?
I will.
Okay, okay. Anything else, board members? Okay, Brian, we were looking at anything else tonight?
No, that's what we have tonight.
Okay.
Brian, what else do you have to do to get I mean, is there stuff with the town you have to do?
Yeah, we're working out on some water pipe locations with John and some things with DPW.
Okay.
So, yeah, but you had said we don't need TAC here, so we don't have to deal with that. So it's really just Bill Renault, and I'm gonna be talking to him again tomorrow and probably schedule a time next week to meet with John Organ and myself.
Okay.
We've got 3 weeks before the next meeting, so we've got some time. It's not a 2-week turnaround. There's a gap week here.
Right, you said next time, Jim Emanuel, a little more detail on landscaping, the details.
Yep.
Lighting, signage, O&M, so.
Yeah, details.
It's on the parts list. Yep, so we're getting there.
Yep.
We'll see where we are in 3 weeks.
Yep.
All right, we'll open up to public testimony. If anyone has a comment or question, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting at this time. Seeing no hands, we'll close out the public testimony.
I move that we continue this to June 14th.
Seconded.
And
Any
Mr. Chair, what was
discussion?
the application date on this, just the time? Because there is a variance component to this.
March 28th.
March, so you got April, May. Yeah, I think you should probably just extend it going into the summer. Yeah, I would request that for the
August
time to
30th.
render decision to August 30th, just push it to the end.
So I move that we continue the hearing to June 14th and accept the applicant's request to move it to August 30th to render a decision.
Seconded the amended motion.
Thank you. Any discussion on the amended motion? Regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right. Thank you for your time and updates tonight. We'll talk to you in a few weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Okay, on to new hearings. 23-83, 84, 85, and 86, Christine Hill at 9 Elm Crest Road.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Chris Aiello here on behalf of Christine Hill and Dennis Hill, who I believe are either still on or signing in momentarily. Oh, I see.
Nope, Chris, we're still here. Thank you.
Still here, great.
Okay.
Special thank you to Gail, who was exceedingly patient with me throughout this process. So we come before you today for approval of essentially an in-law suite, an accessory apartment in their residence at 9 Elmcrest Road in Wakefield. So we have 4 requests for relief. Special permit for the accessory apartment under Article 4, Section 190-22A 1F. 2 variances related to the requirement that the lot and the house comply with the current zoning. So those variances, one is for a side yard setback requirement there under Article 4, Section 190-22A1 F5. There is 11 feet, just over 11 feet existing there. 15 feet would be needed for the existing structure to comply. No changes in the dimensions of the house or the exterior are being made here. So this is just the way the house was built in 1950. The third is the lot width and street frontage. Again, a lot that doesn't comply with the current zoning code. So that's Article 4, Section 190-22A 1F2. At the street frontage, there's 78 feet.
Attorney Aiello, do you have a site plan or something you can put up for the board just and members of the public?
Yes, I can share.
Okay.
A package.
Just a visual, some, helps everybody kind of.
Yeah.
As you're talking through the details here.
Here we go.
The only site plan that I see is the mortgage site plan. Do you have a real, although you're not changing the footprint of the house, right?
Correct. We do not have that's the site plan we have. We're not changing anything on the exterior of the house. So I'm showing it here. I'll zoom in a little bit. So as you can see, when you're looking at the house from the street frontage, to the left where the garage is, there's.
Can you rotate it? Sorry, interrupting you. We're reading it sideways here. Where's the rotate tool?
Yeah.
Chris, if you go to view, you can pull down and go to rotate.
Rotate view.
Mr. Chairman,
Kind of
There we
clockwise.
go.
There you go.
a little, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a quick kind of point of order. Because we've done many of these. So this house is a legal nonconformity, right?
It is a legal non-conforming house, correct?
Lot, a legal nonconforming house.
Lot, yeah.
With non-conforming setbacks. I don't think he needs a variance. We've never done variances before, especially if he's for an accessory apartment.
Well,
especially if we're not changing the footprint, which is what the meeting of a accessory apartment is. So I don't think you need variances.
well, he may need one. I was going to get to this once he made his initial presentation. But you
I just trying to narrow the presentation.
Yeah. Well, I just want everyone the benefit of at least the initial presentation of what they're proposing. But yeah, it does look like you applied for more than you probably need relief from this board. But at least in my mind, you applied for at least the right things I think you do need. It's just, you may have applied for more than you need at the end of the day. So why don't we just finish your presentation and then we'll go through each of the items, because again, there are criteria for an accessory apartment. You want to demonstrate to the board that you're meeting those criteria. And then any sort of relief that this board needs to provide, we can discuss that. And then anything that goes beyond that you may have applied for, potentially you would have the opportunity to withdraw without prejudice, and it just comes off the board if it's not needed, right, at the end of the day.
Certainly, that makes sense. And we had a feeling that we may have gone a bit overboard, but figured it would be better safe than sorry to file the applications. So the second variance I had been discussing, which may not be necessary, is the street frontage here, which is roughly 78 feet on the street front, which is also the width of the lot at the street front. And the fourth request relates to the size of the unit. Let me go back to zoom out. Let's go back to view. Rotate view. So the last request relates to the size of the unit. Obviously, Wakefield has a requirement that it cannot be more than 25% of the square footage of the house in which it resides. The square footage as designed is 1,132 square feet, which if you include that square footage in that calculation of the total square footage of the house, ends up being about 27% of the total square footage of the house. If you were to calculate the existing square footage, not including this unit, and get the percentage, it would be roughly 36% of the total square footage of the rest of the house. So we need relief there. As for the intended use and the backstory here, our clients purchased this house last year. There was a finished accessory unit in the basement that they had no, were not aware was problematic. So on the left here is the existing unit that was there when they purchased the property. On the right is what's proposed. What you can see is that there's not much change at all to the size of the unit that's down there. Compared to when they bought the house, just changing the layout, moving the bedroom and kitchen around to make it the flow of the flow in the living space better. The intended use is for the parents of Miss Hill. Her father, Stephen Taco, is 76 years old. He's planning to move out of his condo in Boston. We'll be spending a lot of time here with his daughter and grandkids, and it'll be him and his wife. So it's not meant to be an Airbnb or a unit to rent out. It's meant to really be for the parents of one of the homeowners to spend time in downstairs. And they're moving out of the condo. So while the percentage on the size is a little bit larger than what's normally allowed for, we thought that it's an appropriate size for a 1-bedroom unit, and it also makes sense based on the geometry of the house because of the way the walls have already been set up and the space finished. It would essentially be just refinishing the space that currently exists down there.
Okay. Okay. So the way I'm reading it, board members, I'll just review what I think, and to Chip's point, they've applied for a special permit as they need to, as we always see in these cases. The size of the accessory apartment would be greater than the 25%, but as 190, 22F, A1F,
6
says, but unless in the opinion of the ZBA, a greater or lesser amount is warranted by the specific circumstances. So we can vary that. We have discretion to allow it to be greater or less without an additional variance, if the conditions warrant it. Now, it's an existing basement. It's already sort of fitted for this type of use. So we could determine that on our own, that, it being a little bit larger, given it already exists in this state, pretty close to the state, would be fine, right? So I don't think we need any additional relief in terms of a variance there. So I think the special permit with that finding by the board would cover that aspect of it being a little bit larger. The variance on F2, again, because it's a legal existing non-conforming lot, with 192 minimum lot area and width requirements. So can you put that site plan back up? So I think the variance says minimum width and frontage are insufficient. The bylaw actually says minimum lot area and width. So the frontage, I think, again, it's part of that legal non-conforming nature. Let's see. I think area you're covered, right? What's the area of the lot? It's plenty.
So the area of the lot is much greater than what's shown here, unfortunately, based on this survey. So the area of the lot, I'll go back to the application. I'll show you the supporting evidence as well. Rotate view. Clockwise. So the area of the lot's roughly 38,000 square feet. What's shown on the survey that we provided, the site plan, is much less, but there's reason for that, and I'll get right to it. Following this, if you look here, what they did when they did that survey for the mortgage company is they sort of only measured one of the 2 legal parcels that create this property. So it's more than half of the property was not measured there, and the deed here that was recorded shows that there's 2 parcels. Here's the first parcel, and then here's the second parcel. So then when you look at those measurements on those 2 parcels that are contiguous, it confirms what you see in this image right here about the total depth and square footage of the properties.
Okay. Okay, so it meets the area. So in F2, it says meeting minimum lot area. You meet that. So you don't need a variance from that, right? And it says width, lot width. You do need it for lot width because it doesn't meet that. So I think that variance specifically on F2, you need that relief from this board, right? The other variance on F6, apartment size, again, that goes to the 25%. We can find that as part of the application. So that variance I don't think is needed. And I don't think the board wants to entertain, you know, establishing variances for this type of thing, as you pointed out, right? So I don't think that one, and there was another one, right? There's the fourth application.
I believe that was the fourth.
Oh, on 5. They
Side
were
yard setback.
is on the setbacks. Again, it's a legal non-conforming lot. So we don't think you need it on 5 because again, it says conforms to the other requirements of this chapter unless a variance. I could see how you read that and maybe think you need a variance because it doesn't meet things. But this is an existing non-conforming lot. So it is what it is and it's already legally non-conforming. Right? So you don't need an additional variance for setbacks in this case. So I think the ones for F5 and F6 are not needed. And you only need it for lot width, right?
Yeah. Yes, we're happy to withdraw the 2 that are unneeded.
Okay, so we'll right. So when we get to the point where perhaps we're ready to vote, we'll deal with all of that. But I think that clears up, in my mind, you know, again, what you really need from this board, what you're proposing, and what perhaps you don't. The application seems reasonable. It has to be for family members. So I'm happy to hear that's being considered and happy that the family can coexist and you know, live together and put the family together. That's fine. Not expanding the use or the footprint. Again, if that were to happen, you would need a variance, but you're not proposing that. So that's fine. So I think, and then there's other parts about it being verified every year on a yearly basis and in lieu of a bond or surety that, you know, that they just reassert through the building department that the need is still there. So they just have to certify that if that's the case, right? Otherwise the other kitchen's got to come out, right? And it goes away. But I think in terms of the size, you demonstrated that. So board members, I think I just wanted to go through that, make sure it was clear to everyone what was needed, what wasn't. I think in my mind, the rest of it all sort of falls in line. So does anyone else have a comment or question about this one?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Then we'll open up the public testimony. If anyone has a comment or question, please raise your hand. I do not see any other members of the public still left with us other than the applicant.
And it's an early night.
And so seeing that, we'll close it to public testimony. So procedurally,
Let's
would
why don't we withdraw the variances that we don't need?
And then deal with what we do, right?
Yeah.
So case number 2384, that's for paragraph 5. On the setbacks, and then 2385, that was the application for F6, which was the percentage being greater than 25%. So I think both of those, if you wanted to make a request to withdraw both of those applications without prejudice, we could entertain those at this time.
Yes, on behalf of the applicant, I make the request to withdraw both of those applications.
Without prejudice. Okay.
Without prejudice, please.
Okay.
I move that we grant the request without prejudice.
Seconded. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Regular voting members, Chip?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Jim? Jim, you're on mute.
Yes.
Thank you. And I vote yes. All right, so those two are off the board. So now it's the special permit, the original special permit, and his meeting, of course, and the other variance for the lot width. And then we would find as part of the special permit that the accessory apartment, we acknowledge and approve that it would be greater than 25% if board members were so inclined. I think that's the only thing we would need to find as part of that.
Well, we probably, Mr. Chairman, which do we need to do first, or does it not really matter?
I don't think it matters.
Okay, so I move that we grant the variance for lot width in regards to this special permit application for an accessory apartment.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes,
and I vote yes, so that's unanimous.
I move that we grant the special permit for an accessory apartment as presented to us this evening, with the size of the apartment being greater than the 25 allowable 25 suggested 25%, and that in lieu of surety, that we request that the applicant send a letter yearly explaining the situation of who is living there.
I'll second that.
Do any discussion on that motion? Same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
yes,
Tom,
yes.
and I vote yes, so that's who's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, so you have, I think, what you need. We can work offline on the decision. If you want me to draft it, I will. If you want to, if you feel so inclined, you could draft it and send it to me, and we'll work out the details. Do you have a preference?
If you would be willing to draft it, that would be very much appreciated.
All right, not a problem. We do these pretty frequently, so I've got several templates I can work from.
All right, thank you so much.
I think I have your email in the file, so I do. At rise.boston.
Yes, and I'll email Gail in the morning. This is another person that perhaps should be added to the email chain going forward. So I'll update Gail with that information.
Okay, and I'll get a draft over to you, and we'll work it out offline.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, end of the hearings. We did the other matter up front. Item number 5, clerk and board comments. Anything tonight, board members?
no,
Okay,
I guess I could share one quick update from the MBTA communities. One of the things that we are allowed to do under that new law is keep special permit, keep site plan review of the multifamily that's allowed by right. One of the things we talked about at the last meeting is who should have that, and seeing it, who should have that authority, and seeing it as it's a very limited site plan review because the law sort of wants to incentivize quickly building these and not keeping them in sort of, I don't know, authority or approval purgatory. We had discussed the planning board actually taking on those, since it is a very limited to, sort of actual site plan stuff, connecting to utilities, maybe landscape screening. In addition to their workload being a lot lighter than ours usually is. I didn't have any problem with that, seeing as there's not much you can actually review, and there would be no zoning relief ever required. If there was zoning relief required, it will come to us anyways. So that was the only topic to report on, unless anyone had any different takes that I can bring back to the committee.
don't have a strong feeling either way. I mean, yeah,
Unless, in my view, was unless they needed zoning relief, then there's no reason for something that's supposed to quickly go through approval to come in front of us.
So I guess, Greg, I'm questioning, like, when you say there's never gonna need zoning relief,
Well, if they need the
What is the criteria for like that? What do they, is there a statewide criteria that if you're X amount of units and this close to the zone and
yeah,
all of
so
that,
that's
it's just a
that's
given?
that's
And there's
exactly
no
what.
setbacks or anything
No,
else?
so that's exactly what we're going through right now, is it essentially be an overlay. We're trying to keep the setbacks and all that type of zoning material, parking's actually gonna become a discussion. Some people were advocating to increase parking, but since this is a transit oriented based, then it, but that's a different discussion. But say like setbacks, yes. What it will become is an overlay. Where a certain number of units per area of your lot are allowed, but you do have to meet by right. So multifamily, it's essentially multifamily by right, but meet the rest of zoning. So if there was some sort of relief requested with setbacks or open area or whatever, then it would still have to come to us for zoning relief. We are allowed to keep site plan review, even if it is wholly by right, meaning it's within the setbacks, it isn't looking for any other zoning relief, but it is a multifamily that meets the rest of the criteria, the certain number of units per land area. We are allowed to give some board site plan review just to keep some control of it, because if there is enough land area, it could be large where, yeah, okay, DPW may have some sort of comments over it. So those are the types of ones that where it is allowed by right without any zoning implications that would go to the planning board rather than coming in front of us.
And the planning board was okay with that? They're okay taking on that additional
100%.
responsibility in those cases? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
It was
All right.
actually, I think, suggested by one of the two planning board members.
Okay.
If I remember right, could be wrong on that, but
Okay.
I didn't have a problem with it either, but I figured I would ask if anyone here did. Again, if there was zoning relief needed, it would still come in front of this board, but
Again, I just think there's much larger things coming with this whole overlay and its implications than which board retains site plan approval, but just,
yeah, I
there's,
agree. But
there's a lot
yeah,
bigger questions in my mind than that, but how it's
Yeah.
all gonna play out and getting credit for what's already been done and the super
Yeah,
majority.
I mean,
vote,
that's a-
that it goes to a simple majority and, there's other parts of this that,
well, the getting credit for what's already done is sort of a red herring here, because it's not a mandate for what's built, right? It's it's not a mandate to get anything built. It's just an overlay. So
they could accommodate up to so
that
many
can
more units,
accommodate.
but-
So even if it not accommodate as in it's undeveloped land, it can be developed land. So there isn't like that. That's what I keep hearing. Well, do we get credit for what's been done because we've built so many things? Well, it's not really how the statute works. And also it's not going to be as bad as I think some people are thinking it's going to be. Like, I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, there's going to be these 6th floor. I mean, where we're looking at these overlays now. The thought right now is, it'll be like 3 stories by right in certain areas, and which will end up keeping the density down. And in a lot of the areas we're looking at already, there is a good amount of multifamily. Not everything is multifamily, but what we're trying to do is keep it concentrated in sort of some of the downtown areas, but off of the actual business. So like not on Main Street, because it's multifamily by right. They can't have them. You can't require mixed use on them. So we're kind of trying to piece it together right now where it makes sense, but not sort of screw with our Envision project and things like that, so. And there's a whole like model that the state put together that you have to look at to use to see if they'll count your lots and all that, so.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, assuming that the state goes with all of the assumptions that we're making, but since a lot of this is based on assumptions, the state didn't put out much guidance, but Ezra's been great. I mean, he's a really good conduit to the state on this too, so.
Cool. All right. Thanks for the update, Greg. Anything else, board members? All right, item 6, approval of minutes of May 10th.
I move that we approve the May 10th minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. We're all in favor. Good job, Gail. All right, being no other items on the agenda.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Click leave meeting.
All in favor?
Thanks, folks.
All right. We are in adjournment. Thanks for your time tonight. We'll talk to you all soon. All right. Bye.